Let me welcome everybody to this meeting and thank you all for taking the time to discuss what is probably the most important issue facing humanity at this moment in our history, which is how can we make the transition from fossil fuels to clean energy in all parts of the world fast enough to prevent a climate catastrophe. My name's Nick Dunlop. I'm the Secretary General of the Climate Parliament. I'm based in the UK. I'm originally from New Zealand, and I also happen to be a citizen of Ireland and South Africa. I want to, in addition to thanking all of you for taking the time to participate and thanking the speakers for taking the time to come and contribute to the discussion, I also just want to take a moment to thank the brilliant Climate Parliament team that has convened us all in this event today, and indeed done so much to help bring the Green Grids initiative into existence. It would take too long to thank everyone by name, but you know who you are. I do want to say a special thanks to our wonderful Australian program manager, Lucy Pearson, who coordinates the Green Grids initiative work for the Climate Parliament, and she's had all the balls in the air for this meeting, which has been quite a job over the last few weeks and especially the last few days. Now, we've invited journalists to participate. There's going to be a lot of members of Parliament participating, and thank you all, especially the MPs, for taking the time, because MPs are among the busiest people on the planet. We've also invited journalists, and if journalists who are participating, or any member of the public who's participating, would like to ask questions, the way we're going to approach it is that you should put your questions in the chat, in the Zoom chat, and they'll be answered as we go along by different members of the Climate Parliament team. So, for example, in South Asia, they'll be answered by our Asia Director, Mukul Sharma, formerly a very distinguished journalist, and our Policy Director, Sumedha Basu, who's the person on our team who really knows all about clean energy. If the question's in English from other parts of the world, it'll probably be answered by Sergio Misana, our Executive Director from Chile, who also happens to be a well-known novelist in Chile. If it's in French, Mohamed Kamara will answer questions from Francophone Africa, and Léa Hilero will answer questions from anywhere else in the French-speaking world. I noticed that outside my window, the air ambulance, a helicopter that lands near my house, is about to come along, which will provide a bit of helicopter background noise. So I was just going to add that you can quote their answers. They're speaking on behalf of the Climate Parliament. You also can, if you wish, pose questions to MPs. If you see MPs in the list of participants from your country or your part of the world, and you want to pose a question to them, do so in the chat. And MPs, of course, are very welcome to follow the chat too and respond to any questions where they have something to say. So we're going to be doing chat in parallel with the meeting. We're also, just to let you know, we're recording WTV, the experts who are doing the technical side for us very, very well for this meeting, are recording the event, and it's going to be available within a few hours after we finish on the Climate Parliament website, and it'll be there for posterity. So when people want to know how the Green Grids initiative got started, this event is an important part of it. So turning to the subject of the meeting, the ideas behind the Green Grids initiative are really very simple. Firstly, that we have to shift very, very fast from fossil fuels to renewable energy everywhere in order to stay within a safe carbon budget. We're hearing from the latest report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the UN scientific panel, that if we wanted an 80% chance of keeping the temperature below 1.5 degrees centigrade, we will have used up the carbon budget to do that. The amount of carbon we can put in the atmosphere between now and forever, because it hangs around for centuries, within 4 years at our current emissions rates. If we wanted a 2/3 chance of making it to keep temperature below 1.5 degrees increase, 1.5 centigrade, it's 6 years. If we want a 50% chance, we'll have used up the budget in 10 years. Right now, based on the pledges that countries have brought to Glasgow, we're looking at a 15% rise in emissions over the next 10 years, going in precisely the wrong direction. So we need a U-turn, and we need to move to clean energy very, very fast if we're to avoid a world of 2 degrees where 1 billion people, many of them in Africa, tropical Asia, tropical Latin America, will find themselves living in temperatures as hot as the hottest parts of the Sahara Desert today. They'll have to move. I mean, it is now beyond urgent. The second idea behind the Green Grids Initiative is that we can actually do this very easily if we have the right grids. There's more than enough renewable energy to power every car, every factory, every building with clean energy. All you would need is an area of desert equivalent to 400 kilometers by 400 kilometers. You cover that with solar power stations. You can produce all the electricity the world produces today from all its power stations. That's just to give an idea of the how much resource we have if we just connect ourselves to it. And the third and most important idea, perhaps, is that to do this, we need new political vehicles that go faster. It just, the speed of change that is being driven by the consensus-based UN climate talks is not sufficient. And we're hoping that the Green Grids Initiative will be such a political vehicle. But that's what we'll be discussing over the next couple of hours. We're going to start with a 10-minute video that gives the background to the initiative and shows a bit how it was put together and the Climate Parliament's role in putting it together. The video is a short version of a slightly longer documentary that is to be found on Amazon Prime Video, among other places. It's been produced by two very distinguished filmmakers who we've had the good fortune to have interested in the project from an early stage. So they, from time to time, have followed us around and done interviews and so on to track the development of the Green Grids Initiative. They are Anuradha Vatashi, a distinguished Sri Lankan journalist, and Peter Armstrong, who is a former BBC television producer. He won the Lifetime Achievement BAFTA a few years ago. The BAFTAs are in British television, the equivalent of the Oscars. Tino is managing this event. If we could dive into the video, let's do that now.
Climate change and biodiversity loss are the biggest challenges that are facing humanity right now. And the reality is the warning lights are flashing bright red.
In response, the green energy revolution we've all been waiting for is well underway. Clean energy from sun and wind, which of course don't cause climate change, have become decisively cheaper than dirty fossil fuels.
And the green energy revolution, what is it promising us? It's promising us reliable, low-cost energy in abundance, which allows us to transform economies and save lives because of the climate change, which will have an unimaginable impact.
But some people still see a problem. The sun doesn't always shine and the wind doesn't always blow. So is this intermittency its fatal flaw?
The problem is that most people are thinking too small scale, just within their nation state. Just imagine that you drew a box in the desert 150 kilometers by 150 kilometers and fill that box with solar power stations. you could produce all the electricity that Europe produces today from all its sources, from all its power stations. From a technical point of view, it's perfectly easy to power the world from renewable energy. What you do is you build long-distance transmission lines using high-voltage direct current lines that can transmit power over thousands of kilometers with very little loss to link us all to the areas where renewable energy is most abundant.
We're talking about up to 6,000 kilometers.
So that's like from the middle of the Sahara to London or Berlin.
Yeah, 6,000 kilometers. So in terms of technology development and practice, actually the global energy interconnection is feasible.
It is feasible now.
It is feasible now.
But the electricity flow needs to be controlled precisely. How can we switch it from wherever it's most abundant and therefore cheapest to wherever it's most needed with split-second precision? The answer is smart grids. And in Professor Zhang's lab, they're developing smart grids that can control these energy flows very precisely. So if you combine long-distance power lines with smart grids and clean energy, you get the global energy interconnection. And if this vision is realized, it'll be able to supply electricity day or night across Asia and Africa and the Middle East, all the way into Europe, the Americas, and the Antipodes.
For a flexible, secure energy future, which I see as the cost-effective one and as the sustainable one, then interconnection is just an absolutely central part of that. And it is clear already that the technology and the cost of that interconnection is there, and we should be able to move over to a decarbonised energy system.
And the electricity grid needs to become a little bit more like another grid that we have all got used to using and all take for granted now, and that's the information internet. Anybody from the largest provider of information, Google or Amazon, to the smallest individual blogger, can feed in information into the global network. Anybody can draw information out of the global network wherever they are. And it needs to be the same with energy, that anybody can feed in from their rooftop solar panels or from a giant desert solar power station, and anybody can access the renewable energy that's being fed in the same way. And the information internet crosses borders, and it needs to be the same with energy. We have to think beyond the nation state, share our clean energy resources in order for everyone to have a reliable supply of unlimited, cheap, clean energy. Governments could make this transition without annoying their voters. Most voters would be perfectly happy if the power that comes out of their plug comes from renewable energy rather than fossil fuels. The voters aren't the problem. The problem is lack of leadership.
So Nick Dunlop came up with a striking solution: to create a forum where political leaders from around the world could build momentum together for this clean energy transition. And he called it the Climate Parliament.
Climate Parliament is a network of politicians, and they come from all political parties. This isn't a party political issue. But what they are specialists at is getting governments to do things. She's okay with that? Yes, he's okay.
It's summer 2015, and the Climate Parliament is meeting in the run-up to the Paris COP. They're focusing on designing the proposal they're taking to the world leaders in Paris, and they're calling it the Green Grids Initiative. The Paris Summit, COP21. For the Climate Parliament, Paris is an opportunity to recruit support for the initiative from key leaders like the Energy Minister of Costa Rica.
This is one of the slides used for a global energy internet. Each region links up into a regional grid to trade renewable energy across borders. And for Costa Rica, this works on two levels. One is that Costa Rica, as a major renewable energy leader, can benefit from the interconnections and can often be an exporter, but also can have more energy security, because when it's cloudy or not windy, you can be importing. So
in principle, I like the idea.
Another crucial partner for the Green Grids initiative is India. It's setting the pace with its One Sun, One World, One Grid initiative, which is now building energy interconnections right across the subcontinent and beyond.
Until unless we convince our parliaments, until unless we convince all our brethren across the world, I don't think that we have a very bright future ahead of us. So the time is now. And that's why I believe, Nicholas, that your initiative is important and urgent.
It's this sense of importance and urgency that drives the next meeting of the Climate Parliament at the UK Foreign Office's Wilton Park.
We have the technology we need right now to fix this problem. But we can only harness that massive potential if we have enough long-distance transmission lines that connect all the major consumption centers, the cities and the factories, with the best locations for renewable energy.
The idea is catching fire, with potential interconnections being explored all around the world.
Our plan is that to connect the Kyushu with the Busan, and also Busan to connect to Matsue. And then China, Korea is like this one that we are planning.
Solar energy from North Africa to Europe, so perhaps that there may be...
Not only could North Africa share its clean energy with Europe, there are plans too for Africa-wide power lines.
I think the potential is amazing. I think if there's one place that is suited to green grids is Africa. We're not bogged down with existing infrastructure, for instance, that might make us look at legacy and hold on to things that were there for us a long time ago. We could leapfrog right into the green grids concept and start from scratch and get it right and become, the cutting edge continent for renewable energies using the concept of green grids and sharing of our resources and trading in our resources. And that could be our oil, that could be our exportable resource to Europe and the rest of the world. Our planet has given us everything. Perhaps it's just how we share it, how we collaborate on some of these resources that is the answer to the want in one place and the abundance in others.
That means we have to, in developing countries, double, redouble, and double again the electricity supply, because development is work, and work requires energy, and it would be completely unjust if the world's poor were not able to have the energy supplies that have lifted the rich countries out of poverty in generations past. This is the big event that we've been waiting for some years, when the leaders of the world come together to commit very specifically to building the new large-scale generating capacity for wind, solar and other renewables, to building the large continental scale grids and interregional grid connections that we need, right down to solar panels on every roof and solar microgrids for African and Asian or Latin American villages. We've got to do this incredibly fast. And in order to do that, we need to really step up the level of political will, political energy behind these efforts. And that is what we're aiming to do in Glasgow. What we are going to do next is go to Angelique Kidjo, one of Africa's musical superstars. To introduce Angelique Kidjo, she has won 4 Grammys. She's produced 13 albums. Time magazine this year listed her as one of their 100 most influential people on the planet. She is a UNICEF, or has been in recent years, a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador, an Amnesty International Ambassador of Conscience, an African Union Ambassador of Peace. She's devoted to all kinds of good causes, and she has very kindly given us the following message.
Any initiative to save our planet, I am in support of it. We all have to come together and realize that there is not 2 planets. There is only one planet, one ecosystem that we all share and live in. And every effort, small or big, to help Mother Nature carry the next generation is important. Please come together. Let's come together and save our planet. Don't ever let them hurt you in any way. Oh, never let them steal and take the best of you. Keep building cities from the ground. We rise and weave the wave. Mother Nature has a way of warning us. A time bomb set on the last countdown. Do you hear it? Will you stop it? Won't you listen?
Well, that's a hard act for all of us to follow. Even those who may not be familiar with Angelique's music will have heard it if you've ever seen the Lion King Disney movies, because she's part of the soundtrack, making the most sublime music. So one person who will follow Angelique Kidjo effortlessly is William Ury. William is an author. He's written the world bestseller on negotiation, Getting to Yes, which has sold millions of copies in countless languages around the world. He advises presidents and prime ministers on peace negotiations. He is also a founder of many things, including the Harvard Program on Negotiation and the Climate Parliament. I guess about 20 years ago, he and I were sitting in a pub on the White Cliffs of Dover on a winter's day, a pub called the Hope Inn, and we were brainstorming about how to use the new possibilities of the internet to improve global governance and help elected officials deal with global issues better. And in that conversation, the idea of what is now the Climate Parliament was born. So he was right there at the beginning. And Bill, let's hear your thoughts on the Green Grids Initiative.
Thank you, Nick. Well, my friends, today is an historic day because today the world gets to yes on a breakthrough project that quite possibly has the greatest potential to increase the quality of life for every human being on Earth, while at the same time solving the climate crisis. So now, how do we make it happen in the few short years that we have allotted to us? It will take not just ordinary collaboration, but radical collaboration. What we've lacked until today on the climate issue is a visionary common project in which everyone around the world can play an active and vital role, and from which everyone can tangibly benefit. Governments can create the legal frameworks and the financial incentives. Businesses can build the grid. Investors can finance it. Engineers can solve the technical problems. NGOs can mobilize the political will, and citizens can decide to go solar and buy electric. Will it be easy? Nothing ever was. There are many obstacles to be overcome. But think of the green grid as a global moonshot. When President Kennedy proposed to put a human being on the moon in 10 years, few believed at the time that it was possible, yet it happened. I believe it's possible to build the green grid in 10 years. How? Through radical collaboration. Why? Because it's happened before. After all, radical collaboration brought about an end to apartheid. It brought an end to polio. It brought about the exponential spread of the internet, which is connecting us at this very moment. And what is the green grid, if not an energy internet? All of these successes happened much more closely than anyone imagined. That is the magic of radical collaboration. It operates at the speed of trust. One yes leads to another. One success inspires another. And pretty soon we get to a tipping point. It only depends on us, starting right here and right now, to realize the immense opportunity that we have, thanks to the world getting to yes today on the green grid. For all of our sake, and for our children's and our grandchildren's sake, let's use radical collaboration to make the green grid a reality. Let's adopt as our motto the immortal words of the Beatles, "Here comes the sun." Thank you.
Well, many thanks, Bill, for those inspiring words. It's a matter of regret that we've got so many fascinating people speaking in this event today, but because we have so many, each one has to speak very briefly. It would have been a pleasure to listen to you, Bill, for 10 times as long. What we're going to do next is hear from another key member of the Climate Parliament Network, Senator Abshiro Halake of Kenya. Abshiro has been representing the Climate Parliament in high-level events recently to do with the Green Grids Initiative. She's a former deputy director of the famous Kenyan Wildlife Service and of the Red Cross of Kenya. She's a voice for change and sanity in Kenyan politics. So Abshiro, let's go to you next, please.
As we speak today, and as world leaders converge in Glasgow, I don't have a speech, Nick. I don't have what I have is a call to action. And I hope that COP26 is not going to be about rhetoric. It's not going to be about ambitions, because we've been talking this over and over, that COP26 is going to be about action. When we talk about the climate crisis, we're not talking about crises of money. We're not talking about crises of technology. We're not talking about crises of goodwill or whatever will, or even political frameworks or legislative frameworks. We're talking of crises of leadership. And we're not blaming the leaders. We're in fact blaming our citizens. And I'm going to speak like a politician, because we're responsible for the leadership that we get. And the crisis of leadership that we have is going to cost us. And therefore, what I'm appealing today is that Glasgow becomes an action point and not a rhetoric convergence. I would like to say that we know what needs to be done. World leaders know what needs to be done. The resources that need to be put to be availed. What we need is action to break down all these great initiatives, such as the Green Grids Initiative and the One Sun, One World, One Grid initiatives, to what we do on a daily basis as leaders to make sure that we save this planet and to make sure that we join, our youth. Our youth are crying to us. And I'd like to say that Africa is also joining the youth in crying to the rest of the world. And I know my time is up, but if a revolution is what it will take, let's be revolutionary and let's act. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Abshiro, for those eloquent words, as always. So going on quickly to our next distinguished speaker, it's Barry Gardiner, who is a member of the British Parliament, a former Environment Minister of the UK. He happens to be a son of Glasgow, so the UN summit is happening in his hometown. He is also an old friend of the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, and had a meeting, just Barry and the Prime Minister, about a year and a half ago in Delhi, where Barry asked the Prime Minister if he'd be interested in participating in the launch of a Green Grids initiative at the Glasgow summit. The Prime Minister said he'd be happy to in principle. And that was a key moment in moving this project forward. So Barry, a year and a half later, we're about to watch the result of your meeting in Delhi. We're about to see Mr. Modi announce the Green Grids initiative in a few minutes. But in the meantime, let's hear from you. Barry, please.
Yes, Nick. Look, an important day. Climate change is teaching us a very hard lesson. It's telling us that we're not a world of many nations. We are, in fact, a world of one human community. And the Green Grids Initiative is about acting as one world community. In an interconnected world, it makes no sense that governments continue to fixate on energy independence. What we need is energy flexibility. The Green Grids Initiative will make it possible for power generated anywhere to be utilized everywhere. It's cooperation on a global scale to utilize the renewable resources of water, wind, and sun, and to trade each other's surplus to where it's required. this is an international political vision that I think is equal to the climate challenge we face. Every hour, the sun bathes our planet in more energy than the whole world uses in a year. We just need to harness that and take it to where it's needed. That's what this announcement that the leaders are going to be making in a few minutes is all about. And I'm proud that the Climate Parliament has played its role in that.
Okay, many thanks, Barry, and many thanks for the role that you've played. But we're going to go next to the chair of our Climate Parliament India group in the Parliament of India, Dr. Sanjay Jaiswal MP, who has also been involved in this Green Grids initiative from the very beginning. In fact, he may represent the beginning in a sense. It was about 6 or 7 years ago that he went and had a meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India and presented the idea that we were calling at that point a solar silk road linking deserts across Asia and Africa. The Prime Minister responded saying it was a wonderful idea, and that led to a whole series of discussions with the Energy Minister of India and many other energy ministers along the way to get to the point we're at now. So Sanjay has played a key role throughout. He still is. He and 2 other Indian MPs are in the room waiting in the Glasgow summit, waiting for Prime Ministers Johnson and Modi to announce the Green Grids initiative, One Sun, One World, One Grid, the government-to-government process that is about to kick off in a few minutes. And we'll tune in to the leaders speaking in Glasgow shortly when they start. Let's hear from Sanjay.
Thank you, Nick, and good evening to dignitaries and participants in the launch of Green Grid Initiative Osoro. At the outset, I congratulate to governments of India and UK for this historical step. Equally important, I would like to congratulate Climate Parliament and our MPs who have been consistently working to make this day a reality. I believe it is through their endeavor that we have been able to bring this visionary idea that took shape in Lucerne, Switzerland to the world stage in the year 2015. At the moment, very quickly, I also reflect on the journey that we undertook to make vision a reality and the role that a member of parliament can potentially play. For this, I would first and foremost thank our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji. I still remember when I first met with the Prime Minister and shared this idea with him. It was because of his appreciation and encouragement that I went to Honorable Power Minister of India. Following this, we undertook series of activities, meeting with multiple state and non-state stakeholders, letters and memoranda, national and international meetings with MPs and country heads, bouncing our ideas off experts and scientists. The rest, as they say, is history. As my friends from the global south would agree, no one better than us MPs would know the urgency of acting on climate change. We are witnessing the changed climate every day as it affects the daily lives and livelihoods of our constituents. If ever a visionary global project like Green Grid can ever be implemented, it is now, it needs to be now. The real work for Climate Parliament begins now. Not only do we need to generate political will so that more and more countries participate in this initiative, we also need to ensure that the benefit of this global project reaches to even the last person of the remotest village of our country. Thank you once again.
Okay, many thanks to Sanjay for that message. Now, sometime around now, we'll be tuning into the presidents and prime ministers on a stage at the World Leaders Summit in Glasgow. And what we're going to do right after we've heard from them, we're going to go to Alexandria Villaseñor, or Villaseñor, I imagine is how I should be pronouncing it, who's one of the leaders of the Youth Climate Strike and Earth Uprising, who are making such an impact on politics around the world. but we'll wait for Alexandria to be able to comment after the leaders have spoken. So in the meantime, if we could perhaps hear from Paddy Padmanabhan while we wait for the leaders to assemble. We were told that it's always possible they won't be running on time. And so we'll just keep going with other speakers until they are ready to go. So Paddy.
Having brought down the cost of generating electricity without emitting carbon to a fraction of the cost of the alternatives with carbon-emitting fossil fuels, we now need to turn our attention to making that energy available reliably at the time of need to the urban conurbations and the industrial manufacturing hubs. With electricity transmission grids, not just within the borders of a country, but spanning across national boundaries, linking neighboring country networks, and through them, networks further afield, with power lines stretching across lands, seas, and oceans to increase efficiency of utilization of capacity, resilience of the grid, consolidate the intrinsic in-grid storage capacity, and reduce the cost of delivered electricity, all leading also to the acceleration of decarbonization of energy systems. It is my privilege and pleasure to be here today with your excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, at the launch of what I believe is one of the most urgently needed global efforts, the Green Grid Initiative, within the concept of one sun, one world, one grid. It is the electron superhighway straddling the globe that will bring electricity supply security, fuel economic partnerships between nations, and offer shared prosperity to all. Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks to Paddy. And just to say a word about Paddy Padmanabhan, he is the CEO of Aqua Power, which is one of the world's biggest renewable energy developers. There are two hopeful things happening in the world, I think, on climate change, a lot of less hopeful things. One hopeful thing is the youth uprising with young people in the streets saying they've had enough of waiting. And the other is that the cost of clean energy has been plummeting for years. It's now quite simply cheaper than fossil fuels, and that gives us a huge advantage in trying to accelerate the transition. And Paddy and his team at Aqua Power currently, and not for the first time, hold the world record for the cheapest solar ever. So we owe a lot to Paddy. He's also the founding member of the Green Grids Leadership Forum that the Climate Parliament has established as a way of engaging business leaders and civil society groups. So he's a kind of co-founder of the Green Grids Initiative too. Now we're going to go to one of the most distinguished members of the Climate Parliament Network, Kunde Yumkela, who's a member of the Parliament of Sierra Leone. He was previously Director General of the UN Industrial Development Organization after a period as a minister of Sierra Leone. He was the founder, really, of the UN Sustainable Energy for All program and was the special representative of the UN Secretary General for Sustainable Energy for All. He is undoubtedly one of the national legislators worldwide who knows the most about clean energy and access for the world's poorest citizens, hundreds of millions of whom still don't even have a light bulb in their homes. So Kunde, please do share your thoughts.
Thank you very much, Nick, and the Climate Parliament for this initiative. We want to thank you for your persistence and continued leadership to make this a reality. 10 years ago at the Green Growth Institute in Korea, I saw already the simulation that the Gobi Desert, for example, could supply maybe up to 30% of the power needed in all of Asia. I have also been in other events where we know the Sahara Desert can not only supply Europe, but can also supply the rest of Africa with power. The Green Grids Initiative is a win-win initiative for all countries, for all regions. We thank you for your leadership. And yes, I'm talking to you from Glasgow. We hope our leaders will have the political will and the courage to take it the next step. The technology is known. The simulations have been done that the economics is good. The climate analysis have been done, that the climate impacts will be very climate friendly. So what we need is leadership and finance to make this happen. Thank you, Nick. We're with you. We'll keep the drum beats high, and we'll do the same in our parliaments as well, so we can be part of the energy internet. Thank you very much for this initiative, and you can count on us always as politicians in our local communities to drive this initiative forward. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Kande. And let me say, we count on you for your knowledge and insight on these issues, which is really matched by nobody. So now I understand Mr. Modi is on the stage now, but other leaders are still assembling. So while we wait for them to get started, let's go to Amida Salsia Alice Jabana, whose name I'm probably mispronouncing badly. She is originally from Indonesia, but she is the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic and Social Council for Asia and the Pacific. She's also an Under-Secretary General of the United Nations. And the one reason that she is contributing today is that ESCAP, as we call it, is playing a leading role in coordinating a new Asia-Pacific working group of the Green Grids Initiative, and has brought together a lot of other international organizations that work on energy in Asia, the ASEAN Energy Center, the SARC Energy Center for the South Asia Association for Regional Cooperation. Because of the time in Bangkok, where ESCAP is based, we have a recorded message from the executive secretary, but I believe that her colleagues Liu Hongpeng and Matt Wittenstein are actually with us, probably staying up late in Bangkok. Hongpeng is director of the energy department, and Matt is the person coordinating the work on the Green Grids Initiative among his many other responsibilities there. So let's hear from Amida Salsia Alice Jabana, please.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to speak to you today for the launch of the Green Grids Initiative, or GGI. ESCAP is pleased to be part of this initiative through our leadership of the Asia-Pacific Working Group on GGI. Power system connectivity is a key tool for supporting the energy transition by enabling access to lower-cost resources, increased integration of renewable energy, and enhanced energy security. Across our region, we see many efforts to increase cross-border power system integration to support sustainable development. Yet, because of fragmented political support, gaps in financing, and some cases limited technical capacity, progress on power system connectivity in our region remains slow. ESCAP work is guided by the Regional Roadmap on Power System Connectivity, endorsed by member states early this year. It contains 9 strategies to promote cross-border electricity connectivity for sustainable development. It is a clear sign that governments across the Asia-Pacific region recognize the benefits of increased power system connectivity. One thread that runs through the roadmap strategies is a need for increased collaboration across the region. Initiatives like the GGI are critical to improving efforts to integrate renewable energy resources across borders by bringing together different stakeholders to share ideas for accelerating sustainable power system connectivity and learning from experiences in other parts of the world. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, power system connectivity is one tool among many for addressing sustainable energy development, but it is often overlooked. No country can address climate change on its own. To meet the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Paris Agreement targets, we must work together. ESCAP looks forward to working with you to build a more sustainable and more connected future. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that statement. And thank you to the whole team at ESCAP for the contribution that you're making to the Green Grids Initiative in the part of the world that contains 2/3 of the human race. That what happens in Asia is what happens to all of us. Now, the live stream from the World Leaders Summit has started for the session that we're tuning into. So let us now switch over to Glasgow, and then when we come back, we'll hear from Alexandria Villaseñor and other speakers that we'll be turning to after that.
Excellency, Mr. Hage Geingob, President of Namibia. Her Excellency, Ms. Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, European Union. His Excellency, Mr. Joseph Biden, President of the United States of America. His Excellency, Mr. Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of India. His Excellency, Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta, President of the Republic of Kenya. His Excellency, Mr. Aziz Akanouch, Prime Minister of Morocco. Finally, may I please welcome His Excellency Boris Johnson, MP, Prime Minister of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, to the right lectern to kick off this first segment of the event.
Thank you very much, Dana. Well, good evening, everybody. Good afternoon, I should say, ladies and gentlemen. It's fantastic to see you all here, and I know that you'll have been paying attention scrupulously to everything I've been saying throughout this extraordinary summit, but I want to remind you of some key figures that you are worth remembering. And I just want to remind you that when I was a kid in this country, we got 80% of our power from coal. When I was Mayor of London, and I first met some of my fellow world leaders, we got 40% of our power from coal. Today, that figure is down to 1% and it's going to zero by 2024. We're going to zero emissions for our vehicles, for our new cars by 2030. We're going to net zero for our whole power generation sector by 2035, not even making use of gas. How is it possible to do this? It's through technology. It's through the Promethean power of human invention. That is what is enabling us to make the progress that we are. And I want to see here from the Glasgow breakthroughs a new surge of initiatives to deal with some of the outstanding problems. And let me give you one in particular, and that is aviation. And it's a tough nut to crack. And we're spending, I think I can see Bill Gates dimly over there. I can see Bill Gates. Now, Bill and I just agreed jointly to spend, I think, £400 million trying to solve the problems of low carbon aviation, zero guilt-free aviation. And we've got to fix it. I'm going to be flying in a plane quite soon that has, I think, 35% sustainable aviation fuel. And the target at the moment is to get to 10% sustainable aviation fuel for the whole world by 2030. How pathetic is that? We can do better than that, folks. It was 100 years ago that Alcock and Brown, I think it was Alcock and Brown, flew the Atlantic for the first time, didn't they, with about 865 imperial gallons of petrol. We've made virtually no progress technologically since then in our approach to sending a plane up over the Atlantic. I want to see Alcock. I want to see, never mind Alcock, I want to see Alcock as the skipper of the next Jet Zero plane that will not rely on fossil fuels at all. And I think that we should be far more ambitious. And I just want to say thank you to His Royal Highness the Duke of Cambridge, because I think the Earthshot Prize is a terrific initiative. And I've just met some young people who've got plans for getting rid of, there's a machine over there about the size of a microwave. It looks suspiciously like a microwave, actually, that apparently can make very cheap hydrogen. Isn't that fantastic? I believe it. I'm a taker. She gave me her card. This could be the future. I think that we can crack these problems, and there are basically 5 key areas where we want to see the breakthroughs take place. They're in transport, they're in steel, they're in hydrogen, they're in agriculture, and above all, they're in power generation. And we can fix it. Go back to that initial statistic that I began with. We can do extraordinary things. You may not think that the weather is particularly beautiful here in the UK. Actually, it's wonderful, isn't it? The weather's not too bad today. It's been fantastic. Hasn't been quite up to Kenyan standards, Uhuru, but it's been pretty sunny today. And there are many days in which, thanks to our combination of solar and wind, we produce more than 50% of our energy from renewables. What we want, the whole objective of this summit now, is to take these inventions, take these breakthroughs, and get the finance, get the support to make sure that they are disseminated, they are spread around the whole world, so that the whole world shares in the Glasgow breakthroughs and shares in our agenda, and that we unite across the whole planet to tackle climate change. And there's one guy who particularly understands how to do that, and who shares that agenda, and who understands that a single hour of sunshine provides enough energy to power the whole Earth for a year. You know that, to power all human activity on Earth, I should say, for a year. The one man who understands that so well, and who's achieved absolutely extraordinary things in his own country of India, is the Prime Minister of India. And ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, there is one sun, one world, one grid, one Narendra Modi, and I have great pleasure in handing over to Narendra. Over to you.
Excellencies, Namaskar. I welcome you all to the launch of the One Sun, One World, One Grid today. The One Sun, One World, One Grid concept that I had envisaged.
Internet.
Several years ago, excuse me, has taken concrete step today through the initiative of the International Solar Alliance and UK's Green Grid Initiative. Excellencies, the Industrial Revolution was powered by fossil fuels. Several countries prospered by the use of fossil fuels, but it also left our Earth, our environment, poorer. The race for fossil fuels also created geopolitical tensions. However, today, technology has presented us with a better alternative. Excellencies, in India, it has been mentioned in the ancient text in the Suryopanishad, thousands of years ago, Suryad bhavanti bhutani, Suryena palitani tu, which means everything is created from the sun. The source of all energy is the sun, and it is the energy from the sun that nurtures all. Ever since there has been life on earth, the life cycle of all living beings, their daily routine has been linked with the rising and setting of the sun. Till such time that this connection with nature was maintained, our planet stayed protected and healthy. However, in modern times, in his eagerness to race ahead of the cycle established by the sun, man disturbed the balance of nature and caused great harm to the environment. If we want to re-establish a life that is in balance with nature, the path to this life can only be lit by our sun. In order to protect the future of mankind, we must once again go together with the sun. Excellencies, in 1 hour, the Earth's atmosphere receives enough sunlight to power the electricity needs of every human being on Earth for a year. And this unlimited energy is completely clean, is sustainable. The only challenge is that solar energy is only available during the day and is dependent on weather conditions. One sun, one world, one grid is a solution for this very challenge. A worldwide grid will enable us to provide clean energy everywhere at all times. It will also reduce the need for storage, and it will also increase the viability of solar projects. This creative initiative will not only reduce carbon footprint and the cost of energy, it will also open up new avenues for cooperation between different regions and different countries. I'm confident that the harmonization between One Sun, One World, One Grid and the Green Grid Initiative will help in developing a joint and robust global grid. I would also like to share with you all that our space agency, ISRO, is soon going to present the world with a solar calculator application. Using this calculator based on satellite data, the solar power potential of any place on Earth can be measured. This application will be useful in deciding locations for solar projects and will also help strengthen the One Sun, One World, One Grid. Excellencies, once again, I congratulate the International Solar Alliance and thank my dear friend Boris for his support. Thank you, Boris, for your support. I also thank all the world leaders for their presence here today. Thank you. Thank you very much.
The acceleration of global clean energy transition is now more urgent than ever. Harnessing the power of the sun, the Earth's biggest energy source, is a readily implementable solution.
One world, one sun, one grid.
The vision for One Sun, One World, One Grid was devised with this objective in mind. Announced at the first assembly of the International Solar Alliance, OSOWOG will establish global interconnected grids and new transmission lines that cross frontiers and time zones to deliver secure, reliable, and affordable electricity. The partnership between the Government of United Kingdom-led Green Grids Initiative and One Sun, One World, One Grid will synergize efforts to build global, resilient grids that transmit solar energy from a country where the sun is shining to a country where it has set, facilitating universal access to green energy and putting us on the path to just and sustainable energy transition. Today, solar power is the strongest global solution for the climate crisis. Let's ensure we use this energy wisely to power a bright, livable future for the generations to come.
Thank you, Prime Minister Modi, and what a wonderful example of international partnership shown in that film. I'm now delighted to introduce President Biden of the United States of America and invite him to speak from the left lectern.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, our overriding purpose here in Glasgow is to raise the ambitions of our commitments to keep within reach our goal of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. But setting ambitious targets is only half of the equation, as you all know. We also have to have concrete plans for how we're going to meet those goals and decarbonize our economies to reach net zero emissions by 2050. To start, state the obvious, we have to immediately scale up clean technologies that are already commercially available and cost competitive, like wind and solar energy. In the United States, we set a goal of deploying 30 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2030, creating tens of thousands of good-paying union jobs for American workers, and meeting the power needs of almost 10,000 American homes every year. We can do this now. We don't have to wait. At the same time, we recognize that our current technology alone won't get us where we need to be. So it must also be a decisive decade for innovation, developing, demonstrating, and commercializing new clean energy technologies by 2030 so that they can be widely deployed in time to meet our 2050 net zero goals. Clean hydrogen, long-duration energy storage, next-generation renewables and nuclear, carbon capture, sustainable agriculture, and so much more. We need to invest in breakthroughs, and I welcome the UK's leadership on the Glasgow Breakthrough Agenda. Innovation is the key to unlocking our future. That's why the United States is working to quadruple funding for clean energy research and development over the next 4 years, and will lead a year of action in 2022 to advance clean technologies globally. Over the past 2 days, I've announced several U.S. government-led initiatives to help develop and scale clean energy transmission. But we can't achieve our goals through government action alone. I'm looking at some of the men and women in front of me that can help accelerate and develop clean energy technologies. The United States and the World Economic Forum are launching the First Movers Coalition. So let me explain what the First Movers Coalition is, and I expect we already know. The First Movers Coalition is starting with more than 24 of the world's largest and most innovative companies. The coalition represents 8 major sectors that comprise 30% of the global emissions that we now are dealing with: steel, shipping, aluminum, concrete, trucking, aviation, chemicals, and direct air capture. These companies will be critical partners in pushing for commercially viable alternatives to decarbonize these industrial sectors and more. And while championing the U.S. innovation of good-paying jobs at the same time, and the U.S. government is going to use our enormous market power as the world's largest buyer of goods and services, some $650 billion in acquisitions annually, to do the same. The government purchases that much. Together, these policies, God willing, will spur a wave of new and better products into the market and new companies and projects that will create good-paying jobs. So we're attacking the challenge from both ends. We're sending the demand signal loud and clear and investing in research and development to expand supply. We don't just want to innovate in the industrial sector. The agricultural sector also has a vital role to play. As stewards of the land, our farmers belong on the front lines of the climate fight. And together with the United Arab Emirates, I'm proud to announce the launch of Agricultural Innovation Mission for Climate, AIM for Climate. This is something we first proposed at my Leaders Summit on Climate over the last 6 months, we've worked with more than 75 partners to catalyze public and private investment in climate-smart agriculture and food system innovation. Today, along with 75 partners, we're going to launch a $4 billion initial investment globally. The United States is planning to mobilize $1 billion of that $4 billion over the next 5 years, and I invite all of you to join us in working to double the investment by the time we meet at COP27. As with every aspect of the climate crisis, no one can do this alone. We need all of us working together. I know you're tired of hearing that said. It's said over and over and over again, but it's true. And as we do, the United States will lead by example and share with the world our considerable powers of innovation. And as my grandfather would say, with the grace of God, the good little neighbors and the creek not rise, and we're going to make a lot of progress. All kidding aside, I think there's virtually nothing we're unable to do, particularly when we do it together. And again, I want to thank all the private sector for their work. Thank you.
So that was very interesting, and it was interesting to hear what Joe Biden had to say, worth staying on for. But I guess we perhaps hadn't quite foreseen that Narendra Modi was going to deliver his speech about the Green Grids Initiative, One Sun, One World, One Grid, in Hindi. So for the non-Hindi speakers among us, I'm going to ask Sumedha, one of our colleagues in Delhi, just to give us a quick summary of what he said, because his was the key intervention from our point of view, and then we'll go to Alexandria. Sumedha, please.
I think what Prime Minister Modi mentioned was essentially the key role that solar has to play in our energy systems from now on. He began by sort of outlining the problems that we have faced because coal has been one of the key energy sources for our grids. And not only has it caused the problem that we are discussing today, which is essentially climate change, but it has also led to several geopolitical problems. So according to him, the solution here is to go back to sun, from where we essentially get everything that we have today. And he highlights that because sun is available only during the day, an initiative like Green Grids Initiative or also work are needed to basically ensure that solar electricity is available throughout the day and throughout the year. And he congratulated both the initiatives, which is also work and Green Grids Initiative, and he gave a congratulatory message to Boris Johnson for getting together on these two initiatives. And he hoped that we can make grids more inclusive and more, expand them throughout the world.
I would like to start by congratulating all the nations that have signed the Breakthrough Agenda. I think it's absolutely imperative for countries to come together and collaborate to keep temperature change below 1.5 degrees centigrade rather than 2 degrees centigrade that otherwise we would be heading for. The Breakthrough Agenda is therefore a very important method for countries to collaborate with each other and work together towards this common goal. I would also like to congratulate the Indian government and the British governments for the initiative of the One Sun, One World, One Grid, as well as the Green Grids Initiative. We all know that renewable energy has to be one of the key factors in finding solutions to climate change. And one of the key ways in which renewable energy can be integrated into the grid is through initiatives like this, which will allow for the mass deployment of renewable energy all across the world, where we're actually able to connect many different centers depending on where the sun is shining or the wind is blowing at a given point in time. And therefore, it is extremely critical for this initiative to go forward and for the world to come together and basically ensure that we have this network of transmission corridors all across the world that are able to much more properly and deeply absorb renewable energy all across the world. I think this is a fantastic initiative, and congratulations once again to the Indian and to the British governments. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Now that was Sumant Sinha, the chairman and managing director of Renew Power, which is India's largest renewable power producer. And the interventions we're hearing from major business leaders in the renewable energy sector are very important, because the private sector is the sector that has to build the new clean energy infrastructure for the world. So having them involved in the Green Grids Initiative is key, and we very much appreciate the interest that a number of CEOs and major companies in the sector have shown. We'll be hearing from a couple more in due course. That's the announcement from the stage in Glasgow, so to speak, and it's been something we've been working towards for a long time. For years in the case of the Climate Parliament, for many months in the case of the UK as the host of COP26, which decided to make this one of the initiatives that it would take up and help to launch today. It's just the start of a long process, which is going to involve, among other things, trying to keep friendly pressure on the governments to go fast, to think big, to work together to build the cross-border grid infrastructure that we need to trade renewable energy and ensure a reliable supply of cheap solar, wind, and hydropower for everyone. And when it comes to keeping the pressure on governments, nobody is playing a more important role than the youngest citizens. And we're very pleased to have with us today Alexandria Villaseñor from the United States, who is a co-founder of the US Youth Climate Strike. She's a founder of Earth Uprising. She's a prominent figure in the Fridays for Future movement. She recently spoke at the World Economic Forum. She addressed the Democratic National Convention last year in the US. She's a key figure. And as I said earlier, to my mind, the work that you, Alexandria, and your colleagues in this youth uprising are doing is absolutely essential. What we are hoping to get from you is not blind support for what the leaders just said or for this Green Grids initiative. It's to keep ratcheting up the pressure on the governments to get them to go faster, and that's how we can turn the Green Grids Initiative and other things like it into a rapid vehicle. Alexandria, let's go to you now, please.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Hello, everyone. My name is Alexandra Villaseñor. I'm a 16-year-old climate activist and the founder of Earth Uprising International. Currently, I am attending COP26, and this week, youth will be making our voices heard and holding our world leaders accountable. So I have been a climate activist for 3 years now, and I first started when I was 13 years old. And I was motivated to get involved with activism because of wildfires, actually. Growing up in Northern California, I was in my hometown in 2018 when the Camp Fire happened in Paradise, California. And at the time, that was the worst wildfire in California's history and the most destructive wildfire. And so it ended up covering the entire area in thick, unbreathable smoke. And it was at one point over 350 AQI and the worst air quality in the world. And so I have asthma, and that was a very scary experience. And so I started to research and see the connection between climate change and wildfires and how climate change was fueling them. And so I turned all of the climate anxiety and eco-grief I was feeling from seeing the impacts of climate change when it comes to wildfires, and I turned it into action, and I decided to get involved and do something. And so in California, what's been happening behind many of our out of control wildfires has been our energy grid. Specifically, the company that provides California's electricity, Pacific Gas and Electric, has old, outdated infrastructure. And when there are really fast winds and really dry and drought conditions, that infrastructure has broken and has been the spark for some of the largest wildfires in California's history. And so the Green Grids initiative being announced today is being promoted as bringing renewable, non-fossil fuel energy to our nations, states, and communities, which is exactly how we begin the transition away from fossil fuels and to renewable energy. However, these green grids do more than just provide renewable energy. They replace old, dangerous infrastructure. And so being from California and seeing the effects of climate change with wildfires makes me personally very excited. Of course, our Earth system has already reached 1.2 degrees of warming, and we're seeing the effects of this warming right now through stronger storms, raging floods, longer droughts, and dangerous heat waves. Bringing new, responsible, non-fossil fuel energy to communities also stabilizes energy access, so our grids aren't as vulnerable to the effects of the climate crisis. So this is a win for the stability and safety of communities, a win for the transition off of fossil fuels, and a win for the future of my generation. Thank you so much for having me here, and I'm really excited to see everything we do this week.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Alexandria. That was a wonderful intervention. And we're looking forward to hearing your fellow youth leader, Aisha, as we approach the end of the first part of this session shortly. And thank you for raising the critical issue of resilient grids. What we've seen in California and other parts of the so-called developed world in the last couple of years is really a reminder that the issues of climate change affect everybody right now. I think some people tend to see climate change as something that's a problem for very poor people in very poor countries, very far away if they live in rich countries. But as you have just been saying to us, Alexandria, that's not the case at all. And as we see more and more intense heat waves, as the planet heats up due to the inaction of our governments, it's going to be more and more important that we have resilient grids. And that means not only in African villages, but also in Californian communities and other wealthy parts of the world, we need community grids that when the national or state grid go down can keep generating electricity from local renewable resources to maintain air-conditioned spaces. Otherwise, the death toll from heat waves is going to keep going up and up. Now, what I propose we do next is go to Silvia Hernandez in Mexico, not right next door to California. Sylvia was for many years a senator in Mexico. She was a minister in the cabinet. She was once recognized as Woman of the Year by the American Chamber of Commerce. She and I were both co-recipients of the Indira Gandhi Prize, the first Indira Gandhi Prize, because she and Tom Downey, who's going to follow her in a minute, and I and some other colleagues put together a similar initiative to this back in the 1980s when we were all younger, called the Six Nation Peace Initiative, which brought together the prime ministers of India, Greece, and Sweden, and the presidents of Mexico, Argentina, and Tanzania as a group to help end the Cold War. And that's where I certainly learned the power of high-level initiatives like this. Sylvia is also remarkable for her impact on Mexican politics. In recent, not so many years ago, she led a campaign, really drove a campaign that forced the political parties of Mexico. It's now a legal requirement that they make sure half their candidates for the Mexican National Congress are women. And now Mexico is one of the few countries in the world that has roughly half women in its national legislature. That's entirely because of Sylvia's leadership. So we've been very fortunate that she's been helping with the Green Grids initiative. And one of the things she did 3 years ago now was organize a meeting hosted by her friend at the time, the Mexican energy minister. He's still her friend, but he was the energy minister at the time. And we had a meeting with 19 governments, including the government of California and 18 national governments in the old Senate building in Mexico City, where we drafted a declaration that is just being released today, the One Sun Declaration, which is kind of stating the objectives of the Green Grids Initiative, One Sun, One World, One Grid, this combined government-to-government group that we've just been hearing from the Glasgow summit. The guts of that declaration was actually drafted there at Sylvia's meeting in the old Senate building in Mexico. So Sylvia, let's turn to you next, please.
I was in mute, Nick, something strange for my personality.
It happens to us all.
Thank you for the invitation, Nick. I am so happy to be here with you all to be part of the launch of the Green Grids Initiative. As you were mentioning, it was already 3 years ago that Mexico had this good fortune of hosting a constructive, ambitious planning meeting for the project. And as you mentioned, participants from 18 countries and California came together and defined the pillars that would drive this work. And let me say that these participants brought rigor, energy, and creativity to the first draft of the initiative. But you and I and our colleagues know that parliamentarians have a special and particular role in tackling daunting challenges. They are capable of coming together, to think together, to work together, and to legislate to shift the obstacles that impede progress. So tackling global warming will take deep commitment to change and transformation, yes. But I am convinced, Nick, that parliamentarians can shape the landscape in which innovators, policymakers, companies, concerned citizens, and community organizers can meet to work and make change. You were sharing our memories that many years ago, I had the honor of working alongside you and other leaders and friends at the Six Nations Initiative. That initiative urged superpowers to eradicate the threat of a war of mass destruction. On those days, the world found itself at a silent, terrible impasse, with the world's most powerful nations wary to make changes. Nevertheless, parliamentarians successfully found a way that triggered a series of actions that removed the worst scenario so feared by all. Today we face climate change that we now know is an even greater challenge that calls for urgent action for our survival and for our planet's well-being. I am certain that the launching today of the Green Grids Initiative will be a groundbreaking, impactful program of work directed to that goal. This will be, as you mentioned, a long process, Nick, but here is to robust discussion, close cooperation, and ambitious imagination to put pressure in governments around the world. Parliamentarians, I wish you the best in this work.
Well, thank you, Sylvia. And of course, nobody is better placed to talk about the critical role of parliamentarians than you, having led a real Mexican revolution in terms of the role of women in Mexican politics, which is so inspiring. Now, I said a moment ago that we would follow you immediately with your friend and mine, Tom Downey. But Tom, knowing how flexible you are, I wonder if you'd mind just waiting 2 minutes while we hear from Manoj Upadhyay, the founder and chairman of the ACME Group, who I gather has to go in a moment. So if you're still there, Manoj, let's turn to you. Manoj is one of India's most innovative solar developers, among other things. He's had all kinds of awards like Best Solar Developer and Top Power Business Leader of the Year and so forth. He specializes in disrupting financial models. So Manoj, let's hear from you, please.
So thank you very much for inviting me here. I'm really happy to share my view with you guys. 3 years ago, I had an occasion where I presented the similar concept, one sun, one grid, to our Prime Minister. I'm very happy to see that now we are discussing at a global platform level. I think I would like to mention 3 key advantages of a one sun, one grid. And one of that advantage is that we can have the cheapest renewable power in the morning and evening to meet our demand, where renewable has a tendency to be available in certain hours. And this we can solve through one sun, one grid, where we can set up the plant in our neighboring countries in different zones. This other disadvantage we carry in renewable power is actually, it's a variation because of the weather. I think when we extend one sun, one grid, we will be able to handle that also, because our grid have huge inertia to deal with at one particular case if you have a lower radiation or high radiation. And the third advantage of what we can have is that when you are connecting the high radiation zone, you will be able to optimize the resources, solar resources, and you will be able to offer the cost, competitive cost to the countries where solar radiation is not that much rich. But friends, as always, you have always technology which gives you advantage. It carries also something which we need to solve it. And on those areas, I think I would like to invite and share my view to all of you. The first point is the cost of high voltage DC transmission. We are still at $25 to $30 per megawatt hour. This is not sustainable. We need to bring it down to $10 per megawatt hour per 1,000 kilometers. And I'm sure it is doable. We have seen in solar cost innovation. I think we need to see here also. The second advantage also what we need, second challenge, we also need to see it, whether transferring electron to multi-thousand kilometer is economic or transferring molecule is cheaper. Today, we have an option of transporting renewable hydrogen, renewable ammonia, and renewable ethanol. So shall we build the grid of power, or shall we build the grid of something else? We build the pipeline where we can carry not only power, but we can carry other form of energy as well. And third important thing is, as always in infrastructure, when all the countries which are connected with the grid for certain period of time, when they start generating power, how do we handle this peak capacity in the grid? This is perhaps a technical challenge, which I had not thought of when I was thinking on the one sun, one grid. But I'm sure with this experience panel where we can always debate and find out a solution and really implement. Again, my congratulations to both the government, Indian government, as well as the British government to take up this cause. And I'm sure the innovator and technical communities will find them so to that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Manoj. In a moment, we'll hear from another leader in the solar industry in India, Vineet Mittal. But first, Tom, thank you for your patience. Let's go to Tom Downey. Just to introduce Tom for a moment, he was elected to Congress at the time he was 25 and the youngest member of Congress ever. I think someone may have beaten him to it now, but he only turned 25, the minimum age to be a member of Congress, after the election, before the inauguration of the new House of Representatives. And he's been a key player in Washington ever since then, and that was some time ago. First as a leader on peace and disarmament issues in the Congress. He continues to be one of the best networkers in Washington. He knows everybody, everybody loves him and trusts him. And he has been, from time to time, good enough to deploy his amazing network of Washington contacts on behalf of the Climate Parliament. So, Tom, you were part of the team that put together that earlier initiative of world leaders that helped to end the Cold War back in the 1980s. So do share your reflections on this new effort, the Green Grids Initiative.
First of all, Nick, congratulations to you and to the members of the Climate Parliament. I have some idea of the excitement and sense of accomplishment that you must have because you helped save the planet from nuclear weapons testing, and now you're saving the planet from the ravages of climate change. I'm speaking to you exactly 1 mile from the capital of the United States and from the White House. And at any one day in the United States, 100% of the American people believe 50% of their countrymen are out of their minds. This doesn't make doing anything politically very easy. In fact, it makes it impossible. But President Biden campaigned on and is in the process of achieving an extraordinary effort of not only climate change, but equity and justice. And while the Green Grids Initiative is absolutely imperative, all of you have spoken to it, all of us know what the Earth needs, we have to look at climate change not just in terms of the wonderful things that we can do to get clean energy, but we also have to face the fact that we are using too much fossil fuel. We are using too many non-renewable materials, and we need to stop that. And there is only one way to really stop the promiscuous use of energy and materials, and that is to tax it and to make sure that the things that we know are bad for us are disadvantaged and the things that we know are good are advantaged. That is a painful thing to hear. It's even more difficult to do, but it is absolutely imperative that we recognize that in order to achieve a greener and cleaner environment, that these things happen. I saw that Alexandria and Yisha will be on in a minute. There's no doubt that to win the hearts and minds of the people, that their generation is going to accomplish this. We really don't have any choice. Economic and ecological overshoot will destroy us if we're not careful. And the process of winning the hearts and minds of our countrymen and the people of the planet is beyond just the Green Grids Initiative, the fundamental reality and the fundamental challenge that we all face.
Okay, many thanks, Tom, for those wise words. Now, Vineet, why don't we turn to you? Vineet is another leader in the solar industry. He's built with his wife and his Sindor and his team the Avada Group, which is one of India's leading solar developers. He has 2 gigawatts, which is a lot of power of renewable energy projects out there already, and another 5 gigawatts, I believe, in the pipeline. And he too has had awards such as Solar Man of the Year, but he's also done a lot of humanitarian work on the empowerment of women, education, healthcare, and other social causes. So Vineet, let's hear from you next, please.
Thank you, Nick, for a warm introduction. First of all, congratulations to you and entire team for helping governments to set up high standards and ensuring natural resources are used across the world. We all are aware of the existential crisis that humanity is facing presently. While efforts are being made, intervention needed to be implemented at much higher pace. And as we all know, India has already touched 100 gigawatt renewable energy capacity just a couple of months back. And there is a desire to go to 500 gigawatt as announced by our Honorable Prime Minister by 2030. And if you look at it in the terms of financial investment, it would require around $500 billion investment to build new grids, new capacities, and meet the new target of additional 400 gigawatt. So this presents a huge opportunity for investor, insurance and pension funds of developed nations who are sitting on massive capital that is attracting 0 or sometimes even negative interest rate. And the challenge, what we see is that some of these countries have their investment protection policies, which does not allow these funds to exploit the potential of India and other developing market. So those aims are great, and what you are doing through your initiative is getting world leaders to agree on global changes. What is needed now to ensure those initiatives are fulfilled, and that can only happen through availability of capital at the right price to the developing nations as well. I hope you will add that to your policy initiative, and in next COP27 we will have here one sun, one world, one grid, and common prosperity and common pool of capital to make it happen. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, well, thank you, Vineet, for those words, and we look forward to working with you on it. Now, turning to Senator Rawlings, Member of Parliament from Ghana, we are rich in the Climate Parliament Network in medical doctors who have gone into politics. Sanjay Jaiswal, who we heard from earlier, is one such, and Senator is another. She's a member of the Committee on Environment. She's the daughter of a famous former president of Ghana, so she's carrying on a family tradition of political leadership, and not least important, she's a co-founder of the Climate Parliament Ghana Group. So Senator, let's hear from you next, please.
Thank you so very much, Nick, and hello to everybody else. Greetings from Ghana, and incidentally, I'm now the Deputy Ranking on Defense and Interior, which, as you know, with what's happening in the Sahel, climate change is very much a security issue now. With regards to my contribution, I would say it's truly my prayer that as we pursue this agenda of going green, we don't create a greater range of waste products that undermine the very concept of green technology. And some of the questions that we should be asking ourselves should be, how do we design and innovate new ways of fueling our communities without desecrating our planet in the process? How do we ensure that there's collaboration and cooperation at the highest levels, and ensure that there's also the necessary accountability and transparency with this initiative to ensure that the issue of geopolitics does not influence the ability to fuel a community, because there's the cross-boundary agreements on how to support these communities. The other thing as well is, if we think about the issue of how to revolutionize our approach on sustainable power generation, think about how the sun hits our skin and forms vitamin D. You think about how in a storm, lightning hits the ground, nitrogen is released, and then it's absorbed by the plants. It would appear that long before we came up with the concept of inorganic fertilizers, nature had already thought of how to do that. And so perhaps all the problems, or the solutions to the problems are in nature. And perhaps we need to learn a little bit more from the wisdom of creation, because it appears that to date, man has been a poor imitator of nature. It's time to be inspired by the masterpiece of nature and by its magnificence. And our drive towards green energy must be about the transmutation of energy, just as nature does it, whether it's the way chlorophyll traps the sunlight, or whether it's the way our skins transform sunlight into vitamin D, so that as we look at this, we minimize the accumulation of byproducts that are harmful to ourselves and to the environment, that have become the trademark of fossil and nuclear fuels across the planet. So I believe I was given just 2 minutes, and I'm trying to stay within that. But definitely we in Ghana and in a lot of the developing countries need to have that support, which the greatest emitters, I believe, are duty bound to provide to countries that are trying to do their best as they are catching up in terms of development, to ensure that as we proceed with this initiative of the green grids and green energy, countries are not deprived of that opportunity to leapfrog from the over-reliance on fossil fuels into green energy in a way that still empowers their people and allows them to develop to a standard level that is acceptable to their people. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Senator, for those words and for your leadership in the Ghanaian Parliament. Now we're going to go to another leader on environment and climate issues in another national parliament, Australia this time, to hear from Adam Bant, who's the leader of the Australian Green Party. Adam.
Hi, I'm Adam Bant, the leader of the Australian Greens. As a member of the Climate Parliament, I am really proud to support the Green Grids initiative. Australia has one of the longest and thinnest grids in the world, but it's basically a series of lines out to coal mines. What we need is a grid that goes out to where the sun shines the brightest and the wind blows the hardest. And in Australia, we are blessed with so much sun and wind that we could get our country to 700% renewable energy, where we're not only powering ourselves domestically with renewables, but exporting our sun and our wind to the rest of the world. And to do that, we're going to need a grid that not only connects up the whole of our country, but connects up all countries. Not only is this a way of tackling the climate crisis, but it'll ensure climate justice as well. It will mean the sun and the wind that falls everywhere over the earth is distributed to everyone across the whole of the earth, to make sure that everyone, wherever they are, gets clean, cheap, renewable energy. I'm sorry that our government is coming to this critical climate summit with terrible pledges that are consistent with over 3 degrees of global warming. But please know, A, I hope that our government signs up to this critical Green Grids pledge, and B, know that there are people right across the world who want to share the sun and the wind that are falling on this country and continent of ours to make sure not only that we tackle the climate crisis, but that we build a more equal world for everyone. Congratulations on this initiative.
Okay, well, that's great. It's the middle of the night, of course, in Australia, so Adam was good enough to record that message for us. It's not the middle of the night in Senegal, and so let us turn next to Juliette Zangon. Juliette, vous avez la parole. Juliette is an important member of our network in Senegal and a very influential parliamentarian.
Merci beaucoup, Nick, et je salue l'opportunité que vous me donnez aujourd'hui de m'adresser vraiment à tous ces chefs de gouvernement pour parler et mettre en valeur vraiment les réseaux verts, qui sont aujourd'hui une dynamique que nous tous nous saluons, parce que vraiment c'est un travail excellent qu'a fait le Parlement du climat pour qu'ensemble nous puissions au moins lever et respecter aussi, faire un travail impressionnant par rapport à tout ce qui concerne l'importance cruciale d'une transition mondiale vers les énergies renouvelables et sur la nécessité vraiment de chaque gouvernement d'accélérer le rythme. En tout cas, pour ce réseau, on le salue et vous savez que mon président, son Excellence, M. Macky Sall, a eu lors de l'Assemblée générale des Nations Unies parlé au moins des efforts qui sont fournis au niveau du Sénégal par le Millennium Challenge Corporation, donc pour l'électrification rurale avec les énergies renouvelables, mais surtout aussi les parcs éoliens et aussi l'électrification qu'on est en train de développer dans les secteurs surtout clés de développement que sont l'agriculture, la pêche, l'élevage, le tourisme et les infrastructures, tout ce qui concerne aussi les questions de santé et de nutrition, allant dans l'eau et l'accès à l'eau et à l'assainissement. Et vous savez que aussi on tend vers l'exploitation du pétrole et du gaz, donc qui demeure plus ou moins sensible aux divers impacts du changement climatique. Et en effet, je crois que pour ce changement climatique, il faudrait qu'on essaie de voir les différents risques qui sont là et les catastrophes qu'il induit et qui constituent une réelle menace sur les objectifs de développement. Et réduire aussi la croissance et rendre inefficace la lutte que nous sommes en train de faire sur la pauvreté et l'atteinte de la sécurité alimentaire. Je crois ensemble, nous devons limiter le réchauffement climatique, comme l'a dit l'accord de Paris, à 1,5 d'ici la fin du siècle. Et là, je crois que c'est un combat que nous devons tous mener, relever le défi de la sauvegarde de l'environnement par la réduction et l'empreinte écologique. La RED+, tout le monde doit s'y mettre par des lois et une biodiversité, la préservation du littoral. Favoriser la mise en œuvre de l'accord de Paris. Et je crois que c'est urgent pour une transition mondiale vers les énergies renouvelables. Et je termine pour dire qu'il faut enclencher l'accès universel à l'électrification par les réseaux verts que nous sommes en train de dire et consolider les financements des fonds verts climat pour une meilleure adaptation et une bonne atténuation de la transition écologique répondant au transport, tout comme vous le savez dans le secteur du développement. En tout cas, on salue aujourd'hui cette opportunité que vous nous donnez pour ensemble, la main dans la main, que nous relevons avec les réseaux verts le changement du climatique qui aujourd'hui pose problème au niveau mondial. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup, Juliette. And we are very fortunate to have you as a member of the Climate Parliament Network. I may say that we have a brilliant network right across Africa of concerned, committed parliamentarians, and many of them, not all, but many of them are women parliamentarians, which is really inspiring for us.
Merci beaucoup. Merci.
De rien, Juliette. C'est vrai. Let's go to Anand. Anand is a strong supporter of the Green Grids Initiative and the Climate Parliament. He is the chairman of the Mahindra Group, which is one of India's huge industrial conglomerates. They're leading players in IT consulting, in car manufacturing, also as solar developers, banking, all sorts of things. And Anand is definitely seen as one of the far-seeing leaders of the Indian business community. Like Paddy, he has made Mahindra, his company, a member of our Green Grids Leadership Forum. He's aiming to make Mahindra the premier or one of the premier electric vehicle manufacturers. He exports a lot of vehicles to other developing countries too. So he's making vehicles that are appropriate for Africa, Asia, and Latin America, that are more affordable perhaps than a Tesla might be for anyone around the world who doesn't have a lot of money. So it's great to be able to hear from Anand.
Nelson Mandela once said, "The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement." Now he was talking about a different challenge of his time. But I believe the Green Grid Initiative will be entitled to a similar encomium. My felicitations to the nations joining this movement to make worldwide usage of renewable energy a reality. The Green Grid is going to play a pivotal role in destroying the myth that solar energy is not available for all 24 hours in a day. With half the earth always lit by the sun, the solar power generation problem gets converted to a power distribution problem. Access to power from other green sources such as wind and water, along with advanced storage solutions, will further reduce the uncertainties associated with the availability of clean power. So we are on the cusp of a paradigm shift. Power will be generated not just at a few large locations, but at more locations than we can keep track of. Power will not just travel to remote, inaccessible locations for consumption, but also travel from them when required. This two-way movement of power can be effectively enabled by a federation of grids, large and small, in a truly collaborative ecosystem. At Mahindra, we hope to use our extensive rural network to encourage farmers to put solar panels on their farms, help finance them via our financing arm, and then create a tech platform that unifies them into a national microgrid. We will ask all companies in our group to collaborate in the initiative to promote a green grid. And speaking of such unity, I exhort companies all around the world to unite, to nurture the Green Grid Initiative.
Well, thanks to Anand for that excellent contribution. We'll go next to Tanvir Joy in Bangladesh, and then after Tanvir to Conrad Sangma the chief minister of Meghalaya state, and then to another remarkable African woman parliamentarian, Rebecca Kamara in Sierra Leone. But first to Tanvir. Tanvir has been involved in the Climate Parliament and in this discussion of green grids for a long time. He's the chair of our amazing Climate Parliament group in Bangladesh and led an effort together with colleagues like Naheem and Vaseka and others in the Bangladeshi Parliament to really push successfully and effectively to get a new national agency called SREDA set up, the Sustainable and Renewable Energy Development Authority of Bangladesh, which is now playing an important role with renewables in Bangladesh. Years ago, at one of our meetings in Sri Lanka, I remember, Tanvir, that you signed an agreement with colleagues in the Parliament of India to work together to strengthen electricity links for trading renewable energy between India and Bangladesh. And I'm very much hoping that the Green Grids Initiative is going to see progress on that front. So let's turn to you next, Tanvir.
I cannot be seen very clearly because I am on the road traveling and it's quite late. Even a parliament from Bangladesh, Climate Parliament, and thanks, Nick, for giving me the opportunity to be get included in this, I would say, very timely initiative, Green Grids Initiative. And I think from the perspective of Bangladesh, it's a very, I would say, a very right moment now because Bangladesh is actually transforming into a middle-income country, from middle-income country to a developed country within our plans in next maybe 1.5 decades under the leadership of our Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. And as you may be aware that Bangladesh is an example in largest solar home system in the world with approaching almost 4.4 million solar home system. And when we started it in 2003, we started with 30,000 solar home system, but now we're reaching the mark of 4.4 million solar home system, and our aim is within next 3 years, we should be reaching 6 million solar home system in the whole country, which will cater to almost 8% of the total population who are connected to electrification. So it's a very significant, I think, initiative for countries like Bangladesh. If today Prime Minister of UK and Prime Minister of India, they announced this one sun, one globe, one grid initiative. And I think from a regional perspective, Bangladesh can be hugely benefited if they can get connected to regional grids through India or big countries like that who have much more potential in renewable and especially in solar systems, solar home systems or solar powered electrification systems. Because in Bangladesh now, we are actually now concentrating pump, which is very important for us. And our whole economic system is also hugely dependent on agriculture. And we have almost over I would say 5,000 irrigation pump, which takes a couple of, I think, more than.
I think we need. We've had a good connection with Tanvir, and what he's said has been very good. But I think we've perhaps he's passing through an area where the connection isn't so good. So we better move on. Thank you very much, Tanvir, and thank you for taking the meeting from a moving vehicle. So let's go next to Conrad Sangma, who is the Chief Minister of Meghalaya State in Eastern India. Chief ministers of Indian states have a very important role to play in the global energy transition. First of all, many Indian states are bigger than any European country in population. There's many states that have a bigger population than, say, Germany. Also, state governments in India have a very important role to play in energy policy. So Conrad Sangma is someone who's been a strong supporter of the Climate Parliament in India for many years. He's a graduate of the Wharton School of Business and Imperial College London, and now running one of India's important state governments. So let's hear from Conrad, please.
Thank you, Nick, for the introduction. I strongly believe that creating and sustaining a deeper love for our environment begins at your own home. Just to let you know, I have net zero power consumption at my own home by installing solar devices. In my state, Meghalaya, environment has always been a priority. A key to the state's environment-friendly, clean energy ecosystem is that 3/4 of the total energy generated in the state is through renewable energy sources. Meghalaya is among the top 10 states of the country in this parameter. We in Meghalaya believe that the sense of responsibility to conserve our mother nature must begin from childhood. In this endeavor, we are implementing a very interesting program through the support of Government of India to encourage our high school students to use solar lamps. Our streets, hospitals, government offices are lightened by using solar energy through our schemes. Close to 5,700 solar lights have already been installed. We are implementing electric vehicle policy through introduction of 20,000 electric vehicles in the next 5 years. This would lead to a reduction of 36.5 lakh kgs of CO2 per year. Interestingly, we find Meghalaya to be well aligned with initiatives under Green Grid, One Sun, One World, One Grid. The people of Meghalaya would always be by the side of such projects that aims to make the world a better place to live. Thank you for making me a part of this global initiative, and I wish it all the success. Thank you once again. Matela, Kublai, and Jai Hind.
Okay, thank you very much, Conrad. That's really great. And thank you for being part of this event. I know that you lead a very busy life. So we're going to go in a moment to Rebecca Kamara in Sierra Leone. And then after that, we'll go to Ashvin Dayal from the Rockefeller Foundation and Congressman Christ from Florida, Yakuba Songare, and I know Ike Ekweremadu, a very distinguished member of the Nigerian parliament, is keen to come in soon. So Ike will try to work you in shortly. But let me turn to Rebecca now. Rebecca is the chair of the Climate Parliament Group in the Parliament of Sierra Leone. She's deputy chair of the Environment Committee, and she is a most remarkable woman. She got caught up as a girl in the terrible civil war that Sierra Leone went through. She lost her family, was taken prisoner by the rebel army, escaped, and went through a very traumatic period in her youth, and came back from that to be a member of parliament and now a leader on environmental issues in the Parliament of Sierra Leone. And I can only say, when I hear Rebecca's life story, that she is the kind of woman who can change the world. So let's hear from you, Rebecca.
Thank you very much, Nick. Access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, modern energy is critical for the achievement of our sustainable development goals. In many developing countries, connection to grids, especially mini grids, are very expensive for our urban people. And it is impossible for the rural areas where there is no grid. Climate change has already caused a lot of negative things to the lives of our people in Sierra Leone and the world at large. and especially to women and children. Energy is very essential in the day-to-day living of our lives, but energy that has been provided by fossil fuel has caused a lot of damage to the human lives around the world. The evidences are visible everywhere in our communities, and it is poor people, including women and children, who are suffering most. The best way to mitigate these issues is through the use of renewable energy. That is why there is a clear and timely need to support the Green Grid initiative designed by the Climate Parliament. Congratulations to us. So I fully support the Green Grid initiative as one catalyst effort to ensure the poor have access to energy to enhance their productivity, enable access to water and sanitation, improve critical delivery of health services, and to empower women to support themselves and their families. As chairperson of the Climate Parliament in the Sierra Leone Parliament, I will, together with my colleague MPs, propagate the Green Grid initiative, lobby our government to include in the national budget issues of climate change so that it can be financed. We will also call on the international community, private sector, and donor partners to invest in the Green Grid initiative. As according to what the presenters said during the launch, we are calling on these bigger nations to support financially this initiative in Africa and the world at large so that we mitigate climate change with the Green Grid initiative and with one sun, one world, one grid to achieve a zero net for the future. Thank you very much.
Okay, many thanks, Rebecca, and many thanks once again for your leadership in Sierra Leone on these issues. So let's turn now to Ashwin Dayal, who's a leader in a different way, not in the parliament, but in the philanthropic world, where he's been for quite a few years now. He's the senior vice president of the Rockefeller Foundation, responsible for their Power and Climate Initiative. And he is leading, together with the IKEA Foundation, a $1 billion commitment, or $1 billion plus commitment, called the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, which is putting serious money into energy access, making sure that every citizen on the planet has access to clean energy to power their development. And I would say the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet is a natural partner for the Green Grids Initiative. So Ashwin, very nice to have you with us, and please do come in.
Good afternoon, everyone. And I'd like to start by thanking the Climate Parliament for inviting me to offer a few opening remarks at the launch of the UK government's Green Grid Initiative in partnership with the International Solar Alliance and its effort to launch the One Sun, One World, One Grid initiative. The enormity of the challenge that we face with climate change isn't something that can be addressed by a small subset of countries alone. And that's why I'm so delighted to be associated with such an ambitious, large-scale event which seeks to galvanize people across the world to take serious, concrete action on this existential crisis. At the Rockefeller Foundation, we're extremely proud to be part of this global movement. This week at COP26, we're launching the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet. It is our most significant effort to galvanize the world and to take action against climate change, but equally to address the aspirational energy needs of billions of people around the world. So the effort is not just about reducing carbon, but also about increasing access and promoting clean, green jobs. Our ambition is to support efforts in over 60 countries by bringing together a network of partners, both investment partners as well as other delivery partners, to achieve at least $10 billion of investments in support of green energy projects. This spans everything from distributed renewables in countries where we know last mile access remains a big challenge, to grid-based electrification, in countries where reliability is still a challenge. But equally important is to support innovative new mechanisms to enable decommissioning of large-scale fossil fuel assets, whether it's existing coal or large diesel generation assets. So we look forward to partnering with the Green Grid Initiative and the emerging One Sun, One World, One Grid efforts, which we think can be catalytic and transformational for the lives of billions of people. Thank you again very much for having me join you virtually today, and wish you a very successful event.
Okay, many thanks, Ashvin, for taking the time out. I can see you're actually in the Glasgow summit. Thanks for taking the time in the middle of that melee to join this event. So let's go next to two of the world's largest countries, the United States and Nigeria, and then after that we'll go to Yacouba Sangaré in Côte d'Ivoire. But starting with the United States, we're fortunate to have an intervention from Congressman Charlie Crist, who I believe is the only former state governor in the Congress, or certainly in the House of Representatives. He's had a long political career and has been genuinely interested and committed to climate action in the course of that career. At one point, I believe he banned oil drilling off the coasts of Florida, which is something one would like to see more governments doing. So let's hear from Charlie Crist, please.
Thank you, Nick. I'm Congressman Charlie Crist from St. Petersburg. Thanks for inviting me to speak about the need to accelerate our transition to clean, renewable energy to solve our climate crisis. St. Pete is known as the Sunshine City, so I know a little bit about solar power. But even in a city that holds a world record for the most sunny days in a row, that's 768 to be exact, we still have a lot of work to do to expand the deployment of solar energy. For many everyday Floridians, the cost of installing solar panels is out of reach. That's why the work of the Climate Change Parliament is so critically important to the Green Grid Initiative. Building up the energy infrastructure we need around the world to lower those upfront costs, to increase efficiency, and transition us away from fossil fuels as fast as possible. The immediacy of the climate crisis requires each and every one of us to act from every corner of the globe. My position in the United States House of Representatives, I've worked alongside my colleagues to expand the solar tax credit, to make solar power more affordable and accessible for everyone. And I'm fighting to pass a bill that would tax corporate carbon polluters and pass the proceeds on to the American people. A big thanks to President Biden. The U.S. Congress will soon pass a historic expansion of green infrastructure, green energy, and green jobs in America. But none of us can solve this crisis alone, which is why I'm so grateful to stand alongside you in our fight to save our planet and all who call her home. Thank you so much, and God bless you all.
Well, thank you very much, Congressman, for that great intervention. So now we'll turn to Yacouba Sangaré, also in Glasgow at the summit now. Yacouba is the leader of our Climate Parliament group in Côte d'Ivoire and has been working on renewable energy issues for a long time and been a key member of the Climate Parliament network. Yacouba, vous avez la parole.
Au Parlement du climat, mais merci à Nick personnellement pour votre engagement parce que vous êtes l'animateur principal du Parlement du climat, vous êtes le chef d'orchestre et c'est grâce à vous que nous ne baissons pas les bras. Et je voudrais en tout cas me réjouir parce que pour moi aujourd'hui c'est un grand jour de lancement de cette initiative One Sun, One World, One Grid. L'initiative a été lancée et après avoir écouté les dirigeants qui se sont exprimés, je voudrais me réjouir parce que c'est une prise de conscience collective. Collective surtout de la part des dirigeants distingués du monde, une prise de conscience pour aller résolument vers l'utilisation des énergies renouvelables de façon massive. Cela prouve que notre combat est un bon combat. Cela prouve que nous sommes entendus, nous sommes écoutés et que les gens vont finir par nous suivre. Moi, je voudrais en tout cas, pour ma part, m'engager à convaincre tous ceux qui sont dans le domaine en Côte d'Ivoire au niveau du Parlement. Le Parlement ivoirien est bicaméral, non seulement les députés, mais les sénateurs aussi. Nous allons nous engager résolument pour que cette initiative soit partagée largement dans notre pays. Et inciter aussi notre gouvernement à être partie prenante pour ne pas être le premier acteur de cela en Afrique de l'Ouest. Parce que la volonté politique en Côte d'Ivoire est déjà affirmée. La part des énergies renouvelables en Côte d'Ivoire est estimée à 42% à l'horizon 2030. Le ministère qui gère les énergies en Côte d'Ivoire a changé de nom. C'est désormais le ministère des énergies, du pétrole et des énergies renouvelables. Ça prouve qu'il y a la volonté politique. Et nous, parlementaires, nous allons nous engager à faire en sorte que le gouvernement puisse maintenir la cadence. Ce que je voudrais dire aux dirigeants du monde qui se sont exprimés tout à l'heure, leur dire félicitations, vous avez pris la bonne décision. Mais ne vous arrêtez pas à ce niveau-là. Continuons ensemble. Le combat est noble. Il faut sauver la planète. Il n'y a pas deux planètes. C'est la seule planète que nous avons. Nous avons le devoir moral de l'entretenir et de la préserver pour les générations futures. Merci Nick pour ce que vous faites. Vous êtes suivi par chacun de nous et chacun de nous est considéré comme un ambassadeur du Parlement du climat, là où il est, faire le travail qu'on nous demande de faire afin que le monde soit meilleur. Je vous remercie.
Okay, merci beaucoup, Yakuba. Now let's turn to one of the multilateral agencies that is playing such an important role, like UNESCO in Bangkok, in the Green Grids Initiative, and that's the Green Climate Fund. The Green Climate Fund, it was set up to be a channel for part of the $100 billion a year of climate assistance that it was agreed would flow from the richer countries to the developing countries some years ago, and there's much discussion of that 100 billion in Glasgow today. Monica Gulberg from the Green Climate Fund is leading a finance working group of the Green Grids Initiative, working first of all on coming up with a definition of green grids investments that can enable more climate finance to flow into this sector, which could be very important because part of that finance working group and involved in different ways in the Green Grids Initiative, we have most of the major multilateral development banks and international donor agencies who've been convened, particularly by the UK COP presidency, as we've got the Green Grids Initiative organized. So could we hear from Monica, please?
Thank you, Nick, and thank you to the Climate Parliament for having me in this interesting and inspiring launch of the Green Grids. GCF is the world's largest climate fund. It's set up by the UNFCCC, serving the Paris Agreement. So our job is to increase the flows of climate finance to developing countries, both from the public sector and from the private sector. And we can use flexible financing instruments, including concessional finance. So we know that grids can enable low emission electricity and reach more end users. Bringing climate finance into this would be instrumental. The climate finance from GCF needs to be additional and add on to other financiers' financing. So in that sense, it can be difficult for countries to estimate and monitor impacts from the investments in power grids. They're needed, but they don't emit themselves. And so it's more difficult than from investing in renewable energy power plants. That's why GCF supports a discussion and a forward-looking, transparent method to help unlock investments in flexible and reliable grids that they reach farther into the unelectrified areas as well. And to do this, we need to base our financing on countries' needs and their own ambitions, where they have expressed their ambitions in their national planning. So we hope with this method that we can support countries to express their needs and to make climate finance flow into the investments in renewable energy, energy supply, and all the other aspects of sustainable energy, grids being one central part of this, and maybe one of the most difficult for us to scale up right now. Thank you.
Okay, many thanks, Monica. And I can only say that the work that you are leading in the Finance Working Group is undoubtedly going to be among the most important that happens in the course of this Green Grids initiative. As I see it, there's really three things the initiative has to do. One is generate greater political will for faster action. One is feed in expertise to the governments and help them to do the thinking to go faster. And the other is help to mobilize affordable finance in much bigger quantities so we can build the new infrastructure faster. And you and your colleagues in the Green Climate Fund have just a central role to play in that. But while we're on the subject of multilateral development banks, why don't we go to you, Moketsi, if we could, to hear from another Green Grids Initiative working group that is already underway, and that's the Africa Working Group. Moketsi Enos Tabela is an advisor to the Vice President of the African Development Bank and acting director for renewable energy and energy efficiency. And the African Development Bank has teamed up with the African Union Commission to bring in a lot of different agencies that are active in Africa and other partners to use the Green Grids Initiative as an opportunity to accelerate projects like the Continental Power System Master Plan, where the African Union is looking to actually create an Africa-wide grid to enable Africa to create a single electricity market in much the same way the European Union has been doing. So Moketsi, let's turn to you next, please.
In the context of energy transition, the expansion of energy access is a challenge on the African continent. The opportunity exists to overcome this challenge efficiently and sustainably. This is made possible by the abundance of renewable energy resources in Africa and rapid reduction in the cost of solar and wind power generation. These factors also offer the opportunity to displace fossil fuel generation and decarbonize electricity supply. However, this is not possible without the necessary grid infrastructure, which is required to harness renewable energy resources on a large scale, even across national borders, across time zones. From this perspective, the Green Grids Initiative Africa Working Group was established in September 2021 under the African Union Commission. This was after receiving the endorsement of the African Union Energy and Infrastructure Ministers in June 2021. Its members are drawn from African institutions that are active in the electricity sector, as well as international organizations. The main objective is to accelerate the implementation of existing regional and continental grid infrastructure programs by facilitating access to financing, technical assistance, and technical cooperation resources. It is important to note that this is complementary to existing support mechanisms. In the process, the working group will contribute to the evolving One Sun, One World, One Grid Green Grids initiative. This has been considered in the development of the working group's work plan, which was endorsed on the 21st of October, 2021. In closing, it will be very important to build on the momentum created so far and ensure progress well beyond COP26.
Okay, many thanks, Moketsi, and many thanks for the work that the African Development Bank is doing to advance the initiative, which is really exciting. Now, we're moving forward. We certainly want to get this meeting wrapped up in the next 30 minutes. We've heard a lot of fascinating and wonderful interventions, but there's a few more that we still haven't heard. And one of them is Aisha Siddiqa, who is originally from Pakistan, who's the executive director for student affairs of the Fossil Free University movement. She's based in the US. She co-founded Polluters Out, a global coalition that includes youth and scientists and others taking action against fossil fuels. Aisha, could we come to you now?
Wonderful. I'm speaking to you today from the Conference of the Parties. I'm actually in the Blue Zone right now. So I've been here for a few minutes, and I've had the privilege of hearing the Indian government speak, the United States, countries from Africa speak. And it's quite interesting to me as somebody who is at this conference, what is taking priority and what is being left behind. I think nations discussing solar panels while they're putting activists in jail for demanding climate justice is pathetic. I think President Biden coming to the Conference of the Parties with 80 cars, booking entire hotels to talk about the legislation that the United States is going to put forth while there are activists hunger striking, young activists, ages 17 to 20, who can't walk anymore because they've been hunger striking for a week and now need to sit on wheelchairs. Demanding a Build Back Better plan is ridiculous. And I mean, I don't even know if leadership is a noun I can attribute to most of the people who spoke today here and at the Conference of the Parties, because I feel like most of your jobs are contingent upon speaking, maintaining your job, not doing the work. Right now, they are negotiating perhaps keeping 1.5 degrees in Paris, which is, again, going to kill more than 40 billion people, sorry, not billion, million people in the island nations. And the word fossil fuel is not even in the Paris Climate Agreement. So my remarks for all of you who are speaking today and also who will be attending COP very soon and are working in your nations is, please get your priorities straight. So much of this is about financing energy as opposed to human beings. And we can have wonderful amounts of green initiatives and energy, but what will it do when dead bodies start piling up in 7 years? What are your plans for that? And that's the last question I'm leaving you with.
All right, many thanks, Aisha, and thank you very much for participating. And I can only say, please keep building that pressure from youth movements on governments. It is working. I see the difference working with politicians around the world. It really is having an impact, and we owe a huge amount to you already in terms of changing the politics of climate change. Now, let us turn to Jakob Mulugeta next, if we can. Jakob is a key ally of the Climate Parliament. Indeed, he's a member of our Board of Trustees. He's a founding member of the African Climate Policy Center, which is part of the UN Economic Commission for Africa, based in his native Ethiopia. He's a professor of energy and development policy at University College London, one of Britain's top universities, also a lead author in the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So Jakob is one of Africa's leading experts on sustainable energy. Could we now hear from you, Jakob, please?
Hello, thank you, Nick Dunlop and the Climate Parliament for all their hard work in realizing the goals of the Green Grids Initiative, the GGI. As you know, energy is an enabler of social and economic development, and investment in energy, and more specifically in the power sector across the developing countries, especially the least developing, has been quite an elusive area. But we are now in a different moment and place where the cost of renewable energy has come down significantly. And the GGI can be transformative in helping countries to decarbonize their energy system, at the same time helping some countries avoid future emissions and invest in their development future. So the GGI is a welcome addition to our energy thinking, but also in realizing real projects on the ground. The GGI will need, of course, to have a social mission of meeting needs of the unserved and include them in the process of decarbonizing development. Thank you very much.
Okay, many thanks, Jakob, for those wise words. Let's turn now to Will Blythe in the UK Cabinet Office. He's normally a senior research fellow for energy in the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, used to be with the Department for International Development when it was a separate UK government agency. And he's been part of the COP unit in the Cabinet Office preparing the summit, and played a key role in championing the Green Grids initiative within the government and making it a key project that the COP presidency has taken up. So, Will, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. It's lovely to see you. I'm so delighted to be here today and to have seen the launch of the Green Grids initiative today at the Leaders Summit. It's so exciting to see this agenda of grids reaching the highest political level today. Grids are absolutely essential for three things, really. Decarbonising electricity, obviously, but also for electrifying other sectors like transport and industry. And most importantly, I think, for getting electricity to those who don't even have electricity. So it's kind of easy to see grids as a bit of a boring technical issue, but for me, this is all about whole systems thinking, and it's something that I've been researching with colleagues at the UK Energy Research Centre for years. And so it's so exciting to bring this agenda to the political level. I mean, there's a lot of technical detail that you've got to get right in the design of grids, but nothing really happens in practice without politics and without money. And so the coalition that's been put together today is absolutely essential to getting this right, and that's why it's so exciting to see the launch, putting together the technical expertise with the money and with the politics at the highest level. So really thanks so much to Climate Parliament for its role in bringing this agenda to the COP, and wishing you all the best for the rest of your event today. It's really exciting and really important. So thank you and well done.
Okay, well, many thanks to you, Will, for participating and for everything you're doing on this agenda. Now, I know in a few minutes our chairwoman, Sirpa Pietikäinen, a member of the European Parliament, is going to be, she's had to leave and she'll be returning to the call shortly. So what I propose to do is to invite some of the other members of Parliament who are on the call to come in shortly. But just before I do, I know there's been a lot of activity in the chat with questions and answers going back and forth. So let me just ask, first of all, Sergio, our executive director, Sergio Musana, if you would just comment on what questions have been coming up, and if there's any major questions that have been coming up repeatedly, it might be worth just saying a word about those. But do you want to come in now, Sergio?
As Honorable Bantu Holomisa from South Africa was pointing out, it's very important for members of parliament to be monitoring and putting pressure on their governments to comply commitments, but at the same time emphasize that the Green Grids Initiative, it's not a process of negotiation, but rather a process of accelerating the construction of the infrastructure that we need for a world power 100% with renewables. Another point has been finance, and that question was raised before Monica's intervention. So I wouldn't want to stay very much with that, but to emphasize that, of course, funding of this grid infrastructure, which is community grids and smart grids that integrate vehicles, and of course, continental and intercontinental grids, is very important. And for that, it's very important to find innovative mechanisms for de-risking and for funding, such as bonds. And we had an intervention from Chris Moore from the Climate Bonds Initiative in the chat as well. But of course, we have a working group working on finance where the Green Climate Fund and Monica are taking the lead, and also the climate compatible growth that was represented by Jakob Mulugeta in the call. And another question had to do with why are we emphasizing wind and solar so much, or more, what is the role of renewable energy that is not wind and solar? And the question regarded hydropower, geothermal power, and nuclear. And there was a couple of answers actually, and a nice discussion about this question, but my favorite answer was by former member of the Bundestag, Hans-Josef Fell, and by the way, who is a former MP, but also a key figure in the transition to renewable energy, asked the German feed-in tariff law at the beginning of this century played such a key role in the transition to renewable energy that we're seeing now. And Mr. Fell was one of the masterminds of that law. So we always take the opportunity to thank him for that role. But in his response, he was being very articulate and clear, saying that the reason we're emphasizing solar and wind is because 80% of the new transition is going to come from those sources. Of course, biofuels, hydro and geothermal will play a key role in balancing fluctuations. And he was also very clear to say that nuclear energy has no role to play in a sustainable future, as it's simply too expensive and too dangerous. But thank you very much for that conversation. Many studies have concluded that solar and wind could power the world economy many, many times over. And that's a key point that we're trying to make. The grids are, in effect, a facilitator, as Professor Mulugeta was saying, for development, but also a facilitator for the construction of the large-scale renewable energy that we need for that complete transition away from fossil fuels. Back to you, Nick.
Great, many thanks, Sergio. Now, Samantha or Mukul, do you have any comment you'd like to make based on the discussion that's been going on in South Asia?
Mukul, do you want to go first?
Go ahead.
Okay, very thanks, Nick. From the South Asian perspective, the speakers emphasize the need to connect the green grid with the local needs and the local population, and how Green Grid Initiative could be helpful to meet the challenges and expectations at the level of community. South Asian participants also emphasize the importance of Green Grid for the regional cooperation, and how the Green Grid Initiative can help countries like Bangladesh and other smaller countries. The other very pertinent point that came through the Climate Parliament Leadership Forum, especially represented by many companies, that they see Green Grid Initiative as the front line to launch their existing efforts and initiative to broaden it further in South Asia and beyond South Asia. So over to you, Sumit.
No, I think that was summed up very well. Thanks, Mukul.
Okay, so turning to Francophone Africa, Mohammed, was there anything you wanted to share from the discussion that's been going on there?
Je remercierai beaucoup plus tous les participants d'avoir pris le temps de nous joindre ici aujourd'hui. Merci beaucoup et on va continuer d'apporter l'appui nécessaire qu'il faut aux parlementaires parce qu'il faut se dire que depuis 1979 à aujourd'hui, donc depuis la première conférence sur les changements climatiques à aujourd'hui, des efforts ont été pris et on ne se fatigue pas de se battre et on se dit qu'il est temps maintenant de réduire les écarts entre les discours et les actions. Et le Parlement du climat est nettement là pour ça, pour appuyer les parlementaires, a aussi appuyé le gouvernement au niveau exécutif pour maintenant aller de l'avant pour sauver la planète. N'hésitez pas de nous contacter si vous avez quelconque préoccupation, besoin d'informations ou de mise en relation avec quelconque expert. Nous sommes toujours là pour vous. Merci beaucoup.
Okay, merci, Mohammed. As I said earlier, Mohammed is our Africa coordinator. One of our network coordinators based in France is Léa Ilero. Léa, would you like to add anything before we go on?
Oui, merci Nick. J'aurais aussi, comme Mohamed, alors, attendez juste une seconde.
Non, ça va?
Au français, voilà. Non, j'avais en français avec l'interprétation. Ça va maintenant. Voilà, je voulais aussi, comme mon collègue Mohamed, vous remercier tous d'avoir pris le temps de participer aujourd'hui. Et je voulais, voilà, ce qui est ressorti dans le chat également était donc l'enthousiasme d'abord de participer à cette initiative de la part des participants, des parlementaires d'Afrique francophone, qui ont également mis l'accent particulièrement sur donc, le renforcement des capacités et sur l'importance primordiale de travailler donc, au transfert des technologies pour que les pays en voie de développement puissent participer à cette transition et en devenir acteurs. C'est surtout ça qui est ressorti de ces participants-là. Merci beaucoup à tous.
Okay, thanks, Léa. And we're very fortunate to have such high-powered members of the team working with our Francophone parliamentarians. We've recently also been joined by Lilia Chanaoui, who previously worked for the President of the Foreign Affairs Committee of the French National Assembly. Now, I know that around now, Sirpa Pietikainen, our chairwoman, was returning, but maybe I understand that three members of parliament, or indeed perhaps one former member of parliament, have raised their hands. If I may, I'll bring them in the few minutes we have left, and we'll aim to wrap the session up within 10 minutes so that we keep to 3 hours, which is quite long by climate parliament standards, but we've done a real tour of the world today. And I see first on the list on my screen here is George Nangale from Tanzania. Let me just say a word about George. He as the chair of the Environment Committee in the East African Legislative Assembly, he came to a climate parliament meeting in South Africa on climate and ecosystems. And he was the kind of member of parliament that doesn't just go to meetings, but does stuff. He went home and wrote a law on protection of cross-border ecosystems in East Africa, such as Mount Kilimanjaro, the Serengeti, Lake Victoria, some of the most famous ecosystems in the world. So, George, it's very nice to have you with us. And why don't you come in and make a brief comment? You seem to be muted still. There we are. Maybe that George is having some technical problems. If so, maybe we'll try coming back to you, George, and go to Yafadu Ben Barak, if I pronounce it correctly, from Morocco. Yafadu?
Oui, oui.
OK, vous avez la parole. Continuez.
Merci, monsieur. Mesdames et messieurs, c'est pour moi, c'est pour moi un honneur, un réel plaisir de prendre la parole en tant que parlementaire, membre de la Chambre des conseillers du Royaume du Maroc, pour participer au lancement virtuel de la Green Grid Initiative lors du sommet sur le climat COP26 qui traitait de l'un des défis majeurs de l'humanité pendant les décennies à venir. Je profite de cette opportunité qui m'est offerte pour remercier de tout cœur les organisateurs qui sont derrière cette initiative lors du sommet sur le climat COP26, qui se tient d'ailleurs dans des conditions particulières liées à la propagation du virus COVID-19. Mesdames et messieurs, le Maroc a ratifié la Convention cadre sur les changements climatiques en 1995. Le protocole de Kyoto en 2002 et l'accord de Paris en 2016. Malgré que ces émissions de gaz à effet de serre ne dépassent guère 1,84 tonnes équivalent CO2 habitant. Les engagements du Maroc pour la réduction des émissions de gaz à effet de serre se sont traduits par l'élaboration d'une stratégie énergétique adoptée en 2009. Ainsi, entre autres, l'objectif fixé à l'horizon 2020 était de porter de la part d'énergie renouvelable à 42% de la puissance électrique installée ou réduire la consommation d'énergie de 15% à l'horizon 2030. Les efforts accomplis par Maroc en matière de développement d'énergie renouvelable et d'efficacité énergétique ont été salués par la communauté internationale qui l'a favorisé à accueillir le COP22 à Marrakech entre 7 et 18 novembre 2016. Il faut dire que le domaine de l'énergie renouvelable au Maroc s'est développé rapidement, en grande partie grâce au soutien de l'État. Ainsi, en 2020, à l'initiative de Sa Majesté, le roi Mohamed VI, le Maroc a décidé d'accélérer le déploiement de l'énergie renouvelable. Pour y parvenir, le Maroc s'activerait davantage sur la recherche scientifique dans le secteur de l'énergie. Jusqu'à aujourd'hui, près d'une cinquantaine de projets en énergie renouvelable ont été réalisés avec un investissement global d'environ 52,2 milliards de dirhams, presque de 5,5 milliards de dollars. Les projets existants en cours d'exploitation ont contribué à répondre de manière concrète à les demandes en énergie électrique. La capacité totale d'énergie renouvelable totalise actuellement 3 900 MW, soit une part d'environ 37% dans le mix électrique national, tandis que sa contribution à la satisfaction de la demande en énergie électrique s'est élevée à environ 20%, ce qui a favorisé une baisse du ratio de dépendance énergétique de 97,5% en 2009 à 90,5% en 2021. Pour ce qui est de nouveaux projets, ils concernent la programmation des capacités supplémentaires de 3 880 MW, ici des sources renouvelables pour la période de 2021 à 2024, ainsi qu'une autre capacité supplémentaire de 5 400 MW pour la période 2024.
May I break in, Yafadou, please? I'm just conscious that we are going to draw the meeting to a close shortly, and there's a couple more members of parliament who would like to come in. So can I get you to wind up now. And thank you very much. But let me just say that we are all hugely appreciative of Morocco's leadership on renewable energy. Morocco is really a world leader in terms of the scale and ambition of the renewable energy transition. And we want all other countries to be going as fast as Morocco. So it's a natural partner, and Morocco has been very interested in the Green Grids initiative from the beginning. Now, I see Sunita Dugal from India is ready to come in. So Sunita, could you make a brief statement? And we are going to try to wrap up soon, so I'll ask everybody just to be quite brief, but it's nice to see you, Sunita. Do go ahead.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you so very much. Such an inclusive, enlightening marathon meeting. And I just want to add that Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji also said something about the new app launched by the ISRO on One Sun, One World, One Grid. I just want to add this thing. Thank you so very much, and happy Deepavali to all of you, all the members, you know. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Barry also, and thank you, Mukul, Sumedha. Thank you. It's 10:30 over here, no sun, but still you talk about one sun, one world, one grid. Thank you, Nick.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So nice of you.
Thank you for staying up late on account of this meeting, Sunita, and for everything you do on these issues in the Parliament of India. So now, George Nangali, I can see you there, and I'm hoping that if you unmute yourself, we can then hear from you.
Thank you, Nick. Can you see me?
Yes, can now, or could a moment ago. Anyway, we hear you, so carry on.
Okay.
See and hear.
Thank you for inviting me to. Yeah, for inviting me to this climate parliament. We are seeing compared to when we started. It was all theory. The initiative is very timely, and for countries like Tanzania, where in the last few years, rural electrification projects have been going on, and almost 90% of the rural villages have been connected now. So this initiative will help will help a lot to take care of the probably the cost of fuel, the cost of electricity, and probably help also to ensure that development actually takes place in the rural areas. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to see more progress and more initiatives in the future. Thank you.
Okay, many thanks, George, and many thanks for everything you've done for the environment over the years, which is a lot. Now, Charity Chepkwony from Kenya, I can see you have your hand up. So let's hear from you, Charity, briefly if possible.
Thank you very much. And let me start by appreciating this fantastic work you have done for us, making sure that you have united all members of parliament globally to talk very serious matters. Let me also appreciate this a very good day that today we are talking about one sun, one world, one grid. I can imagine what kind of a world we can achieve having this. And again, another thing, being a member of parliament from Kenya, Africa, where we have a lot of challenge. Let me also appreciate what is being done by my country, and also the commitment and also the support by the members of parliament in Kenya to the government and the serious oversight roles. And also let me appreciate that also Kenya has declared that the country is going to be 100% transition when it comes to the renewable energy. Also, let me appreciate also, as today we stand here in the United Kingdom in climate change conference, it was also confirmed by the same government from Kenya that we are also ending to the position where we are saying we are ending the deforestation in the country, and also the country has committed itself at least 100% that the transition of the renewable energy and also to ensure that there is 100% stoppage of deforestation. Therefore, I'm just joining my colleagues to appreciate this and also to say that we continue appreciating when you bring fantastic ideas like this one and also bring the partners and also the banks to support the completion of the renewable energy project which are happening in Africa. Thank you very much and thank you for this short time.
Many thanks, Charity, and thank you for your leadership in the Kenyan Parliament. Charity is a formidable advocate for the environment and renewable energy in Kenya. Now, Ike, I see you there.
Yes.
And hear you. So please do. It looks like your connection is better now. Please do
come in
now? Very briefly.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, and see you. Go ahead.
Well, let me congratulate you, Nick, and the rest of our colleagues in the Climate Parliament. I think this speaks volume of the role of the Parliament, not just in making laws, but also initiating diplomatic efforts and also initiating policies. So today, I'm especially excited that we're able to accomplish this. I just want to pray that we're going to match this excitement with action, hoping that a lot of the countries and regions will benefit from this initiative. And I'm also excited that Africa will have opportunity to contribute because of the volume of the sunshine in Africa. Also hope as well that the energy sufficiency will be addressed. And I believe too that this will also create a lot of jobs for our young people. So this is a defining moment for the world. So I want to congratulate everybody and especially congratulate the people of Scotland for hosting this momentous occasion. So going forward, I believe that working together, we need to put pressure on the authorities to ensure a quick implementation of this. So it wouldn't go like the way of most of the protocols and agreements reached on in the sector of environment. So I believe that we will not relent. We'll continue to push forward to ensure that this initiative becomes very operational. Congratulations to everyone.
Okay, well, many thanks, Ike, for that intervention, wise as always, and for the brevity of it. Just moving to the end now, I see that Najib Druish has had his hand up for some time. Najib took the lead in creating a climate parliament group in Algeria. And has played an important role in developing the climate parliament in North Africa. So Najib, to say a few words.
Thank you. So many thanks for gathering us during this event. We are lucky to be under the umbrella of the climate parliament, and hopefully we can join our effort to work all together to save our planet. Through our NDC, country NDC, and I think that we have a lot of work to do to face climate change threat in the next decade. Thank you.
Okay, many thanks, Najib. And while we are in Algeria, let us hear briefly from Jegdal Mustafa, please.
Sangari.
You are. Yes, I think maybe we need to mute what's on the screen. Yes, there we are. Right. Do go ahead.
Je suis très heureux et honoré de participer à cet important événement mondial avec nos amis du Parlement du climat, à cette GGI, avec cette initiative mondiale de la COP26. Pour nous en Algérie, les dirigeants et le peuple sont conscients de la gravité de ce problème, étant donné que notre pays fait partie de ceux touchés par les graves effets de changement climatique. L'Algérie, mon pays, s'est fixé les ambitions jusqu'en 2030 dans le domaine de l'adaptation au changement climatique et de la réduction des émissions à effet de serre. Le réchauffement climatique, notamment induit par le réchauffement climatique, notamment dans le domaine de l'efficacité énergétique et de la promotion de l'utilisation des énergies renouvelables dans le domaine énergétique. Mon pays adopte une approche de sensibilisation aux enjeux du changement climatique en utilisant les secteurs de la communication et de l'éducation et les parlementaires et toutes les parties concernées, en particulier les instances nationales et les groupes locaux et les universitaires et le secteur économique. Et les acteurs de la société civile contribuant à cette voie stratégique. Il reste malheureusement beaucoup de travail à réaliser, parfois des actions complexes à mener pour avoir plus de visibilité et plus de résultats sur le terrain. Il faudrait plus de coopération transversale et internationale. Et merci beaucoup.
Okay, many thanks. Merci beaucoup, monsieur. I will now, with many apologies that we are running out of time, I'll just ask two more parliamentarians to speak. Francisco Mucanea from Mozambique and Diarcadia Bamba from Côte d'Ivoire, who has had his hand up for a long time. Thank you for your patience. And I think then I understand that Sirpa Pietikainen is back on the call. We'll go to Sirpa for some final words. Everyone who is on the call has been very patient in doing a call that's now just gone over 3 hours. But everybody has their limits, and I do apologize to the other parliamentarians who we would love to hear from. But we will have follow-up conversations in a more normal small group climate parliament virtual roundtable format where all parliamentarians get to speak. So this is kind of an exception for us. But Francisco, please do share your usual wise thoughts with us.
Thank you very much, Nick, for the opportunity given to us, Mozambique, to participate in this wonderful conversation at the defining moment in Glasgow COP26 summit. I have to say that I have enjoyed all the talks, but I was particularly touched by Dr. Ananda Mahindra's statement on his company's commitment to help farmers in rural India to achieve energy transition. So I would like to see him extending that goodwill and the philanthropic vein to other communities in other countries like Mozambique. You know, Mahindra here is a very famous brand, everybody knows. So I think it will be good for people to see that apart from vehicles, the company is also committed in improving their living standard in this energy sector. And I think that would also give a substance to Prime Minister Narendra Modi vision to one sun, one world, one grid. Secondly, I would like also to express my happiness to see President Joe Biden from the United States here back to these community climate issues. US leadership, it's very important. I mean, since President Barack Obama in Paris, we were very happy. So I would like to encourage for President Biden to continue advancing his country's leadership in this agenda. Finally, to encourage you, Nick, Sergio, Leah, all teams to continue bringing us together in this agenda. And I thank you very much.
Okay, many thanks, Francisco. So let us go now to Diarcadia Bamba from Côte d'Ivoire, and then we'll hear some final thoughts from our chair, Sirpa Pietikainen, who I imagine is in Finland. Or Brussels, one or the other. You never know with members of the European Parliament. So, Diarcadia Bamba, vous avez la parole.
Merci, merci Nick. Je suis très heureux parce que je ne pensais plus prendre la parole et je suis très heureux de la prendre. Merci au Parlement du climat. Je pense que d'après tout ce que je viens d'entendre avec les interventions de Joe Biden et puis du groupe Mahindra, je pense que tout le monde sera servi à un bon niveau. Je voudrais dire que les inondations que nous avons vécues cette année en Europe comme en Afrique ont fini de convaincre tout le monde et faire prendre conscience à chacun de nous de l'effort à faire pour ne pas sombrer dans vraiment l'irréparable. Et le gouvernement de la Côte d'Ivoire a tellement bien compris qu'aujourd'hui, une centrale sera construite dans le nord de la Côte d'Ivoire, ma région, et cette centrale sera une initiative qui va s'étendre dans tout le pays et voire même qu'on pourra encore exporter, puisque à partir de l'énergie électrique aujourd'hui venant des barrages hydroélectriques, nous avons déjà une fourniture assez abondante. Et je pense que au fur et à mesure, l'interconnexion se fera et de plus en plus, on va dépendre des énergies renouvelables et ça va nous permettre de reconstituer davantage l'environnement de notre pays. Je suis de la Commission Recherche, Sciences, Technologies et Environnement de l'Assemblée nationale de la Côte d'Ivoire et nous en débattons beaucoup et même des initiatives sont encore entreprises au niveau de notre ministère des Eaux et Forêts ou l'agroforesterie. Tout ceci va nous permettre de reconstituer notre couvert végétal et notre dépendance vraiment de l'énergie renouvelable. Merci à tous pour cette initiative et nous avons beaucoup appris aujourd'hui et nous nous réjouissons que ça se répète davantage. Merci beaucoup.
Okay, merci beaucoup, monsieur. So finally, and again, with apologies to other parliamentarians, let me turn to Sirpa Pietikäinen, who is the chairwoman of the Climate Parliament. Sirpa was made Environment Minister of Finland at a very young age. And as it turned out, that was the period when the UN Climate Convention was being negotiated. So she was one of the small group of environment ministers who really led the negotiations and shepherded the convention through to adoption. And without those negotiations having been a success, we wouldn't even be having the Glasgow summit. So she is kind of a parent of the climate convention. But Sirpa, do come in.
Hello, Nick. I'm so inspired to hear and see you all colleagues and allies for the future. Sometimes in life, I guess you all know the moments you suddenly realize that there's the momentum for change. And you know that you have to carry your responsibility, not only to speak in one or two occasions or just to say I agree or put the thumbs up in the social media, as important as that is. But you know you have to try your utmost to create an alliance like ours for the green supergrid initiative is. And you know that by pushing and being inspired and knowing that you are in the right side of the history, you actually can make the change happen. And as we've heard, Nick Dunlop personally is a very good example of that kind of an inspiring fight, not only with this supergrid, but with the Climate Parliament and combating the nuclear armament in the history. And he's a great inspiration, I think, showing that you never dream too big, because small dreams do not inspire people. They do not get us action revived and full of action for greater and better future. But big things do. And is there any bigger and better than thinking and realizing that we have one planet? Our joint challenge is the climate change and environmental sustainability. And we live in the same planet. And we have the one sun. And yes, indeed, we need to create a common super and then gradually a smart grid that joins the people, ensures everybody's fair share of renewable energy. benefits the sun that is shining for us 24 hours every day at some part of the world. Securing clean energy, energy security, and affordability for those ones that need it so desperately. And as we've heard, and I'm not going to go in details because you are very good masters of it, and if you are not, please go and study the Green Grid Initiative, then you will be, that this is doable. It is doable with very actually small amount of the land coverage to create locally and globally sustainable renewable energy, mainly by solar, but joining there the wind energy and wave energy also. And yes, by the grids we can share it, and only by that we can ensure the stability of production of renewables and the possibility to change our energy production in large scale on this. And yes, this is economically affordable and possible because of the prices. And yes, this is technically possible. And yes, this is a good investment. And yes, this is a yesable proposal. Now the only thing is to get all the other people and parliamentarians and ministers and heads of the government as excited as we are about this possibility. And then, dear friends, just do it. Just let's get together. Let's believe. And nowadays, when we are not next to each other, let's join the hands virtually and get other people on board, other politicians, NGOs, young people, businesses, financial sector. And let's show that the power is here, the possibility is here, the future is here. Now it only needs the commitment and decision of our world leaders. And yes, you can do it, we can do it, and hopefully I can do it in very small scale with your help. Great to be with you and looking forward the next times to meet you in person or virtually.
Okay, well, many thanks, Sirpa, for those inspiring words. What a great way to end the meeting. And I can only say that no one is a more inspiring example of commitment to saving the planet than you are. Sirpa is a member of the Conservative Party, the National Coalition Party of Finland, which means she's a member of the European People's Party, which is mainly Christian democratic parties in the European Parliament. She is undoubtedly the greenest member of the European People's Party in the European Parliament. She'd no doubt be very comfortable in a number of different political parties, but it's not always comfortable being as green as Sirpa is in the biggest grouping in the European Parliament, the centre-right grouping, where industrial interests are well represented, shall we say, and Sirpa's always in there fighting for the planet and fighting for the underprivileged of the world. I remember Sirpa when we were having lunch in the members' dining room in the European Parliament many years ago, when we first discussed these ideas of supergrids and desert solar power stations and so on. And it seemed like a big dream, and it was hard to see how we could move in that direction. But I would say today we've had a big day. We saw the Prime Minister of India stand up, introduced by the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and present the initiative that we've been working on and designing and thinking about for years. We saw them show a film about the Green Grids Initiative, One Sun, One World, One Grid, and even a year ago, I would have been pleasantly surprised if you had told me that was going to happen today. We've seen France and the United States join the ministerial steering group. They've just confirmed in the last few weeks. This is all taking shape quite quickly. We've seen the African Union co-sponsor the Africa Working Group with the African Development Bank, and I'm sure the African Union will agree to represent the African continent. There'll be representatives from ASEAN, from Latin America, Germany and Australia attended the first meeting of the high-level steering group of the initiative, of the government-to-government initiative, which happened a few days ago. Germany has to be an observer until now because they just have a caretaker government while a new coalition is being installed. But certainly we're hopeful that Germany will also join that high-level leadership group. And many, many other countries have expressed interest. It's been the declaration that was issued today has been endorsed by more than 80 member states of the International Solar Alliance. A number of others, like Ireland, one of my own countries of nationality, has said we're definitely going to participate in this. Many others have expressed strong interest. Kenya is another one that isn't a member state of the International Solar Alliance. So it's really, we're seeing a bit of a snowball effect. We have a big opportunity to use this as a platform, as a vehicle to step up the pace in the global energy transition and actually get the new green grid infrastructure and the new solar power stations and the new offshore wind farms that we need to be building on an emergency basis, that we need to be building at a tremendous pace if we're going to save ourselves and future generations from a climate disaster. We have a chance to do that, but it'll only work if we all work on it. This is just the beginning, really, even though the Climate Parliament has put years of work into getting to this point. It's really just the beginning, and we have to now buckle down and keep pushing the governments to work together like never before, to mobilize finance, working with the international agencies, and start building that new clean energy infrastructure in every part of the world at a pace never seen before. So that's our challenge, and today has been an important step, and this event has been an important step, and we've really seen the potential to bring together a broad coalition of all kinds of different actors that together could make an impact. So we in the Climate Parliament look forward to working with all the others who participated in this call on this Green Grids initiative. And I thank you again for taking the time to participate. And I'm sure that we'll be in touch again soon.